It is 6 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations, you're waking up in the greatest country in history. We're off and running. We got a whole show planned for you of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Phone lines are open. Give us a call. 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson, Jordan Kastrinsky is going to be joining us. He's the co-founder and Israel director of the Colorado-Israel Chamber of Commerce. Also spent some time with the IDF. Served actively and in the reserves with them. So we're going to talk about Israel, and we're going to talk about the business bonds that are going to be built between Israel and Colorado. This is very exciting. And there's one word I have for you: water, agua. Absolutely critical. As you know, in Colorado, that's gold out here. You go down to the Colorado State Capitol, all the paintings down there in the rotunda are about water, because there's literally nothing we can do in Colorado without it. And guess which country has built systems off of limited resources to be able to thrive? We can learn so much from them. What Jordan is building with the Colorado-Israel Chamber of Commerce is going to benefit every single Coloradan. You're not going to want to miss that conversation. Then, 7 o'clock hour, Rory O'Neill, national correspondent for NBC Radio, is going to update us on what happened in South Korea. Like crazy. Like 24 hours. They had like martial law and then not martial law. And then people are locking themselves in the Congress. It was crazy. So we're going to get an update on that, on Syria. And then this COVID committee report that came out. Did we learn some things from the origins of COVID? We'll dive into that in the 8 o'clock hour. And then 9 o'clock, a voice that you know very well, Steffan is going to join us. Talk about all the fentanyl that the DEA is pulling up here in Colorado. So lots to cover. You're not going to want to miss it. But let's start with news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. Sounds like it's going to be a great show today. On Wednesday, it's 28 and sunny in Denver. Expecting a high of 56 today. The 710 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story: border security will be the top priority for the incoming Senate Republicans in a closed-door meeting Tuesday. Incoming Minority Leader John Thune of South Dakota, we need to keep a close eye on him, laid out a two-step process to pass Trump's agenda without needing help from Democrats. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina said his top priority was securing the U.S. southern border as well. Scott Jennings educates CNN again last night, this time on deportation.
Like what? Like deport illegal immigrants. That is actually not a function of the military.
The military can absolutely be used to work with local officials to provide military resources, but working with other parts of the federal government and local officials. We already send the National Guard to the border.
Not against the will of the local officials or the will of the state government.
We have
a federalist government here.
The military is not supposed to take up arms against American citizens.
They're not. You keep saying that. This is about illegal immigration. You all keep saying American citizens.
Well, how do we know whether the people are illegal or not?
Well, when we
know after they're shot.
We have 1.6.
No, you know because they have an ID.
1.6 million people in this country who've already received deportation orders from courts. They are here illegally.
No, it's always back to illegal immigration with people who support Donald Trump. It's always back to illegal immigration, but that's not the only thing that we're talking about here. We're talking about the American people.
One after another, he destroys them every night, and it goes on and on and on. DJT reportedly considering replacing his defense secretary nominee. Unfortunately, Pete Hegseth.
No, really?
That's what they're saying now. There are reports out there. I hope that doesn't happen.
If that happens, they'll just pivot and go after Tulsi.
Yeah.
There's
Ron
always
DeSantis
somebody. There's always somebody at the lead that the progressives are focused in on and want to take down. And you just got to press through. Because you pull him, and it's just Tulsi's the next target.
Oh, no doubt. It doesn't matter. You're exactly right. It doesn't matter the name. They're going to find something on everyone. So the Wall Street Journal says
except for Billy.
Yeah,
Billy could get through.
No, Billy could. No doubt.
Billy would get through because he just doesn't care, and he'll just press right along. As I'm learning more about Bill, especially those soccer days.
Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I wouldn't make it. There's no way.
Oh, yeah, I did that. Yeah, I did. So what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes.
Grandfather clause. The Wall Street Journal says he might be replaced by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis to head the Pentagon. Hegseth has been facing scrutiny over multiple misconduct allegations, drinking and stuff like that.
Also, a good thing to learn there is, just don't put it in email.
Yeah, good point.
The email that his mom wrote, I understand she brought it back and retracted it and all that stuff. But,
Also, just on a side note, just going forward for all maybe the little kids, or maybe parents can tell this to their kids, because this dovetails with a particular former program director of a music station here in town. When you're hosting some sort of a company event or a meeting, don't do it at a strip club. Bad choice, because he's doing company events at a strip club.
Choice.
And it's co-ed. There are male and female members there. That's a bad choice. That is really bad executive leadership.
That's just
and all I'm saying is,
it to HR.
Yeah. And all I'm saying is, there used to be a program director here in town that the music representatives hated visiting because he always wanted to take the meeting at the strip club.
You're kidding me.
No. And so I talked to numerous music reps.
How did that guy last longer than 7 days?
This is radio. I mean, realize this is the thing. This is what I tell everybody. In radio, we have drug testing in radio, but it's flashcards. So the test is not too hard. So it's like,
and it was pre-Me Too also.
Exactly. So that's it. So yeah, that's the thing. It's just bad decision making. Don't do that.
Something.
Yes. Don't have the meetings at the strip club. Just tell the kids.
Salad bar is really good over there.
I do not want to know how you know that.
These are just the things you hear,
Yeah, you probably saw it on social media. Yes, that's exactly it. And they have good soup. Yes, exactly.
As long as they have Diet Coke or Diet Dr. Pepper, I'm happy. And let's see, the over-dramatic smear campaign by CBS last night. Listen to this.
Good evening. I'm Nora O'Donnell, and we begin with new reporting tonight by CBS News. The highest priority of the President of the United States is the safety and security of the American people. As the commander-in-chief, presidents rely on their defense secretaries to help carry out that solemn task. President-elect Donald Trump wanted a Fox News weekend host to hold that post, the 44-year-old combat veteran, Pete Hegseth. But tonight, that nomination appears to be on the rocks.
Oh, man, they had the slow pans in the photos of Hegseth, great photos, and they dollied up the camera, and it was great dramatic stuff by CBS. So we'll see what happens there. Colorado's legislative leaders will gather in Denver this morning to talk about their priorities during the upcoming season. There's a breakfast featuring leaders from both parties at the Warwick Denver Hotel. I can smell the toast and coffee right now. The Colorado Bureau of Investigation is asking for help locating a teen who was last seen in Denver. The CBI issued a missing Indigenous person alert for 17-year-old Aubrey Ivory on Tuesday. Ivory was last seen on Friday morning in the 4500 block of Frankfurt Way. Ivory is described as a Black and Indigenous female with brown eyes and dark brown hair. Environmental Protection Agency advisor Brent Efron, he admits that the EPA has an insurance policy against Trump and did have one, which is funneling billions to climate organizations. He says we're throwing away gold bars or throwing gold bars into the Titanic. Project Veritas does it again, exposes these communists on undercover video. These guys walk in, guys like Efren, and they think they're on a date, I guess, with another dude, and they almost always walk right into it and expose the truth.
It was a external policy against Trump winning. So like these are basically like nonprofit institutions that will cover the entire country. They could have been a government agency, but because they aren't, they're safer from Republican systems than the USA. You guys are like saving the world, literally. I don't know if we are, but like, we're throwing gold bars up at Titanic. Yeah, we're throwing gold bars up at Titanic. That's all we can say. I don't know if we're saving it, but we're getting the money out.
Jeez. So that's what your EPA is doing.
The honeypotting that's taking place that Project Veritas does is kind of brilliant because they get these dudes and they just feed right into the guy's desire to impress whoever their date is, right?
Oh, and then you get amazing.
You get them liquored up a little bit. And let me tell you how amazing and important I am. I have so much access and secrets that you should know. And then lo and behold.
And what we do, we take like billions and millions and then we just throw it. It's amazing. It's really, you know what? It's not the nicest thing to do, but you know, it feels good to be a part of that organization like that. It's just amazing. Oh my God. I mean, it goes on and on and on. It looks like it's the same bar every time too. I guess so. That's in DC, right? They always entrap them in DC
there. And that anybody who's young and lived in DC knows it. Everybody loves to go out to the bar, talk about how important they are.
Gotcha.
You know, I've got this thing that the media doesn't know about yet. And they just feed right into it. And
man, that's
lo and behold.
So what would you say you do over there?
Not off his face.
Right. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. The Nuggets celebrating last night's 119-115 home win over the Warriors in NBA Cup group play. Nikola Jokic, 38 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists at Cleveland tomorrow night. 24 in Lakewood, 26 in Glendale, 28 in Denver. And Jeff and Billy continue. Hey, it's Hump Day. It is Wednesday.
Absolutely. Very punchable. There's some things that come out of my face that I'm absolutely punchable.
Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Fair weather will dominate the forecast for Denver and the Front Range and all of Colorado from today through midday Sunday. Mostly sunny to partly sunny and dry. Mid to upper 50s today, mid to upper 20s tonight. Low to mid 50s for highs for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday's highs mid to upper 50s. Same for Sunday, Sunday increasingly cloudy. Late Sunday night and Monday, a chance of snow showers, and early next week will be colder. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Billy, do you feel safer in the studio? Because I sure do.
Oh, absolutely.
We got a member of the IDF here.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
I was going to ask him if he could show me some nerve holds that I could do on you sometimes during the breaks.
That would be helpful.
Yes.
That's right.
I'm sure there's something you want to use on me at times too.
That would be another level. I think it would
Yes.
help our viewership get
Yes, it
into some
would.
actual violence.
Yes, it would.
Speech is violence.
Yes.
Joining us is Jordan Kastrinsky. He's the co-founder and Israel director of the Colorado Israel Chamber of Commerce. Thanks for being in the show. Thanks for being in the studio.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I know it was last minute, so I appreciate it. I appreciate coming on and getting to talk about the mission, getting to talk about Colorado, Israel, two places I love. Of course, the IDF. So let's get into it.
Yeah. Are you a Colorado native?
Yeah. Yeah. I was born and raised in Colorado, born and raised in Denver, born in Rose Hospital, went to Cherry Creek High School, graduated 2012.
Bruins.
You know how it is. So
There you
that's
go. Class
that's
of
very
2000.
Yeah. So we're there we go. Same alumnus. Thank you, my alumni friend, But yeah, we've been here, my entire life, come back often. And I'm just excited to now really kick off, a real connection that I see is just natural between Colorado and Israel. So I'm excited about
100%.
that. Yeah.
Well, Israel is a remarkable place, right? I had a chance to visit it about a year and a half ago. First time ever.
Nice.
Got to go with some business leaders here from Colorado.
Okay.
And we were there for part of the opening of the Museum of Tolerance. And there's a strong Jewish Colorado connection, Israel Colorado connection.
Yes.
Through the business community.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't know this, but what Israel's been able to build is remarkable.
Yeah.
Considering, for instance, like the lack of natural resources.
And the neighborhood you're in, right?
Yeah, seriously. Gosh, that's an understatement. I mean, so were you in Israel on October 7th?
So actually, funnily enough, I was in India at the time.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was presenting at a cyber conference. I run a marketing and design business. We work with a lot of tech companies, helping them just expand abroad and build their digital presence. So I was in India giving a talk on October 7th. I literally woke up to the news. I was like at the gym, getting ready for my talk, kind of getting my stuff together. All of a sudden, I see on my phone, there's some red alerts going on. So kind of worried me. So I talked to my girlfriend, now my fiance, talked to her and was like, hey, pay attention. Seems like things are, kicking off a little bit. Suddenly, my feed starts flooding in. I'm in a bunch of different groups that I start seeing all this stuff coming out of Gaza, getting uploaded onto the internet, stuff from Hamas, some from those groups. And I felt like I was living it almost in a weird reality because I was 2.5 hours ahead in time zone from Israel.
Yeah.
So I was watching it all unfold as I'm awake and all my friends are just starting to experience it.
The attack happened early in the early morning hours.
6:29.
Now, I mean, you guys constantly live under the threat of attack. And as you mentioned, little things pop off all the time.
Sure.
But this was like a whole different level.
This was another ball game. I really believe, think, it was the most murderous day since the Holocaust against Jews. Was basically the equivalent of, I think, 10 9/11s in America in terms of the actual size of the attack compared to population. So we're talking about a major event. I mean, this will go down in history, for sure.
Wow. And I saw the video. IDF hosted a private screening here in Colorado. I got to attend it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to get too graphic because of our listeners and families. And my kids are heading to school. And my wife's listening to that too. But I remember calling my wife afterwards and being like, that was a level of evil I've never seen before.
It was barbaric.
Because it was so intent on rape and murder of innocent people. The only way to stop it was to kill Hamas and what was coming. I mean, we in Colorado, it wasn't like one guy. It was an organized effort to harm as many innocent people and you had to have force stop it. There were two scenes out of that, and I'm sure you've seen it too, that stick with me.
My unit was actually I was part of the unit that was in charge of making it, compiling it. Yeah.
Wow. So the two little boys, right, wearing just in their underwears. It's like Saturday morning.
Yep.
And I've got little boys, and it was it was a scene right out of our house.
Yeah.
Right. They're watching cartoons.
Right.
They're enjoying the morning. It's quiet. It's relaxing. And then the dad desperately trying to get them into the bunker. Hamas throwing a grenade killing the dad, pulling the two little boys out, the boys crying because they've just watched their dad die. It was just horrific. The second one, the group of girls that you see them go and they're trying to debate what to do, right? Should we go? Should we stay? And they're in this, because what happened was the Israelis went into these bunkers that were made to survive bombs, right?
Yeah, right.
There's
Missiles that are falling on you.
There's
Mortars.
no doors. There's no ability to lock it. Nothing like that. And they're trying to figure out in real time what to do with limited information. Or should we stay here? Should we run? Are we gonna? And then it cuts to the fact that they've all been killed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. I walked up, and the guys that were hosting it here in Colorado, I just gave them a hug afterwards because it was so gut wrenching to watch innocent people die that way, and then to also hear on the other end the celebration when the one guy calls his parents,
and he's proud,
and he's Dad, Mom, Dad, I got 3 Jews, right. I got 3 Jews, and they're good job, son. It was horrific.
It's like heart-wrenching because, like, yesterday, for example, I just got my results for my master's degree. So I just finished, got my degree. I'm ready, thank you. I got it for master's in cybersecurity. I was very happy about it. It took me 2 years, even finished it during the war. And you know what I did the second I finished? I called my parents. I called my parents. I said, Mom, Dad, I did it. 2 years. I'm done. Wow. My thesis got merit distinction. Amazing, right? Why? The other side is talking about killing people. That's your celebration, right? That's your celebration. That's your pride. It's disturbing. It's disturbing.
So you and I haven't talked. You don't know about this about me, but I spent 4 days with Palestinian protesters at the DNC.
Okay,
embedded with them.
Oh, wow.
Spent 4 days learning from them. Okay.
Yeah.
And I have it all on recording.
Sure.
And our conversations are about Islamic supremacy. Like the end goal. Like when you really get them to what is this all about? It is Islamic supremacy. It is, we're going to, we not only want Israel, we want Western Europe, we want Asia, we want America, and all that stuff. And I was talking to Peter Boyles, who's a legendary radio commentator here in Colorado.
Right, of course.
And he actually described them very, very well. It's like, and he was spot on. It was like being around a grizzly bear with them.
Ooh, in what sense? Well, I'm interested.
So we would be walking and talking, having a conversation like you and I are now.
Right.
And then an Israeli flag would pop up somewhere.
Right.
Like a counter protester.
Sure.
Holy cow.
They just jump on him.
Dude, they would change. And that's why it was like being like a grizzly bear. You just have no idea at what moment the whole thing pivots towards rage.
Yep. And violence.
Yeah.
And very intense violence. I've always found, it's first of all, I have to say it's really kind of reassuring to hear that, you came, supported, the Jewish community during the time of need. You came and watched the screening of the video of horrors. I think that's amazing because in Israel, it's kind of sometimes feels that when, the media is pushing out all this, all these images of the protesters and stuff, you feel very isolated in Israel because you feel like you're kind of between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, you have an enemy that wants to eat your guts and wants to literally destroy you. And on the other side, you have people who somehow buy into this groupthink death cult that's going on. And it can feel very isolating. So I definitely appreciate what you're saying. And appreciate you coming out.
We wanted to do more than that. Right afterwards, I worked at Colorado Christian University for about 8 years. We hosted CSU for Israel, partnered with United Hatzalah, and raised $1 million in a single night.
Wow.
To save Jewish lives.
Wow. Okay.
Now, it was interesting how we chose United Hatzalah because I had a good contingency of donors and supporters that were like, "Oh, we'll buy bullets. Yeah, we're happy to buy bullets for the IDF if we need to." I was like, I don't know if a Christian university should be buying bullets, but United Hatzalah would, and they've been in here. They've sat in the seat you're sitting in. We've talked with them a number of times. The work that they're able to do to save lives, which is just remarkable. And that was more appropriate for a Christian university. But we also wanted to take a stand against the anti-Semitism on college campuses, which is just ridiculous. I mean, and I get worked up about it because, and even Jared Polis and I have had this conversation. It's not just good enough from my perspective that Jews are just allowed to attend college along with everybody else. Okay. Yeah. There's an actual fundamental worldview battling happening on college campuses. And for administrations to even allow this kind of Marxist, anti-Semitic idea to take hold and to put such pressure on Jewish students that they don't feel safe. Mm-hmm. Jewish students are great students. In your case, you just got your master's, but they study, they invest in their communities, they're hardworking. 100%. Right? And the idea that we're even going to provide any type of equivalence with a group that wants to force them out, and the fact that the administration is willing to, well, both sides, free speech. No. I'm not going to both sides this thing. Like, prioritize your Jewish students and their safety, because they're going to make great alumni. They're going to build great businesses. They invest in families. They care about 100%. Communities, all that. And so anyways, we wanted to make a strong statement over at CCU that Christian colleges in particular should absolutely stand up against this anti-Semitism.
100%.
So, yeah. Well, we've got a lot to talk about. I want to get into the chamber here in just a second.
Sure.
And the opportunities for businesses in Colorado to partner with Israeli businesses. We're going to cover that. Speaking of great businesses, one of my very favorite, Mountain High Appliance. By the way, they're continuing their Black Friday sale going on right now. Shop like a boss and save up to $3,100 on select Bosch appliance packages. Enjoy a special financing and price match guarantee with exclusive offers you won't find at big box stores. Visit them today and experience the difference. And when you think appliances, think Mountain High Appliance. $3,100. That's awesome. You can get brand new kitchen appliances, all for the upcoming holidays, for Hanukkah, for Christmas, for Advent, for New Year's. Show off a brand new kitchen with Mountain High Appliance. We'll continue our conversation with Jordan Kastrinsky, the co-founder and Israel director of the Colorado Israel Chamber of Commerce and member of the IDF. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Owayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. A new caravan of 1,500 migrants is heading to the United States from southern Mexico after a pair of caravans were recently stopped by Mexican authorities. Meanwhile, Governor Greg Abbott and soldiers from the Texas National Guard are working on day and night to install additional razor wire here at the southern border after they scored a big victory in a federal appeals court. The soldiers are fortifying a border barrier with more razor wire near Eagle Pass, with Abbott saying his program, Operation Lone Star, has been successful in curbing the flow of illegal migrants into the country. Since the launch of the program, more than 526,000 illegal migrants have been apprehended, more than 48,000 of which resulted in criminal arrests, with nearly 42,000 felony charges. Officials in Iowa are suing the Biden administration for access to information on the citizenship status of more than 2,000 registered voters that identified themselves as non-citizens. Iowa had asked for the info leading up to the 2024 presidential election after Iowa Secretary of State Paul Pete's office had checked voter rolls against a list of self-identified non-citizens with the state's Department of Transportation. The complaint filed says state election officials requested federal citizenship records before Election Day but did not get it. That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Owayo, Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Billy and I feeling very safe in studio because Jordan Kastrinsky is here. He's a member of the IDF.
Yes.
But the reason you're in Colorado is you guys have launched the Colorado Israel Chamber of Commerce.
Correct. We had our official launch event last night at Hogan
awesome,
Levels.
by the way.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
It was a big turnout.
Yeah, I was actually, can I tell you, first of all, I felt blessed because honestly, when we set up the event, I was told you have a space, 150 people can fit into it. And we were like, all right, if we get 75, we're good. You know what I mean? Like, we'll make it sure it'll look good. Yeah. We had over 180 signups.
That's fantastic.
Incredible.
And it was packed and people in good spirits because let's talk about Israel and their success. A lot of this was captured in a book by Dan Senor and Saul Singer called Startup Nation.
Yep.
That you have this small country surrounded by enemies with very little natural resources, and it's an economic powerhouse.
Yes, it is. I mean, listen, Israel has been the society that has needed to learn to work with a little to make a lot, right? You know, you're in a desert. There's really, as you said, there's really no natural resources. Even for a while, they didn't even really know where they were getting water from. And they had to figure it out. And it wasn't so much because, we have to figure it out because we want to, use less. We want to penny pinch. No, it's because we don't have anything else. Like if we don't have water tomorrow, we can't grow crops, which means we can't eat, which means we can't live here, which means we can't build a society. So these are, why then drip irrigation comes about, right? This whole genius technique to let the desert, flourish. That's incredible. But I think really Israel and Israelis have that resilience, that resourcefulness that to me is still just amazing, and why you see these incredible technologies coming out of Israel. Yeah.
So the chamber is going to allow, and by the way, that drip in water is really critical to Colorado because if you know anything about the challenges we face, there's an old saying in Colorado that whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting because it's gold out here. And if you have it, you can build and you can be successful. You can have housing developments, all that stuff. If you don't, the water's heading out to Arizona and California and all those debates, the interstate compact debates. But let's talk about opportunities.
Sure.
So Colorado businesses want to maybe do business in Israel, or Israel businesses want to do business here in Colorado. Tell us what the chamber can do for folks.
Yeah, so I think it's important to recognize that first and foremost, we have to, I think, bring the level of exposure of both ecosystems up, right? Both Israel to Coloradans and Coloradans to Israel, because while you may know it on the map, you may be aware of it. I think some people really just hear it as this kind of place where there's always a war going on, but there's some amazing technologies that are being developed and ways for us to partner. So, local businesses and companies, enterprises here in Colorado can find a lot of technology in Israel that maybe they want to invest in. Maybe they want to partner with a company there to actually build something together. Maybe they want to actually merge with a company there, but they have to look and see the ecosystem. And that's what we're here to do, to actually give them that market insight. So whether they come to us to look for market research, to get business liaisoning, to understand compliance and regulations, that's what we're here to do and provide, and obviously make business matchmaking as needed so that we can actually make deals on the ground go forward. And we're looking at industries from aerospace to water to bioscience, cyber, things that in both cases, both for Colorado and Israel, there's actually a real need, but there's also a lot of activity there.
Talking with Jordan Kastrinsky, is the co-founder and Israel director of the Colorado Israel Chamber of Commerce. By the way, you can go to their website. It's coloradoisrael.org, coloradoisrael.org. Become a member, join there. Last night, one of the more interesting conversations that was taking place was development in the midst of war.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think it's an important thing to recognize that war can sometimes drive innovation. It's just a fact of the matter, right? You look at World War II, you look at World War I, there were major technological developments that came from those wars. Now, those were world wars. They were very big. There was a lot going on. Whole, economies and societies were focused on that. But that being said, when you kind of bring that into a more local, context and look at Israel in a time of war and having to now be resourceful and having to develop cutting edge technologies to deal with, let's say, drone infiltration or other things like that nature. Now you're in a position where, guess what? You have to develop because you have to develop to survive. So obviously, today we're seeing a lot of reservists actually, even on the front line, building new technologies and getting funded for them, which is actually insane, especially, as I said, in the drone space, aerospace field, even some of the weapons fields. Now, obviously, that's easier because of defense, but we're also looking at other technologies that are coming into the foreground too. AI is a big mover and shaker, quantum technologies too, for Israel having both a defense edge, but also an innovation edge and business edge.
Talking with Jordan Kastrinsky, co-founder and Israel director of the Colorado Israel Chamber of Commerce. So give folks like insight into the types of business, maybe examples of businesses that have been developed out of Israel. I think Waze, for instance, came out of Israel.
Yep, correct. Waze. So, that's what I always like to joke too about the pro-Palestine guys who are, not talking well about Israel. It's like, so how did you get to the protest today using Waze? Because better not be using that next. But yeah, Waze is a great example, major, guidance app for traveling and all sorts of stuff. We also have, I think, beyond our own technologies, we have a lot of, major corporations who have research and development in Israel. So Intel has a major plant in Israel. Apple has a major plant in Israel. Microsoft has a major team in Israel for research and development, for manufacturing, for all sorts. So think about this. Many technologies that you're using through Microsoft, Apple, Intel, NVIDIA, they're coming out of Israel. And these companies too aren't even afraid to say that, yeah, Israel is contributing to our innovation as a company. Also, there's all these great researches going on with cannabis and the cannabis industry and coming out of Israel. We also have some, Mobileye, if you've ever heard of that. It's a technology that is used on cars to basically help with positioning the car and preventing accidents. Gong, a sales technology that's being used across the world right now and is actually has offices in San Francisco. These are examples of technologies that are coming out of Israel that are truly insane, and there's IPOs on NASDAQ from it. So,
and businesses would want to partner with Israel because in many ways the type of people it produces.
Yes.
Think about national service, young people coming up. They're coming up in a moral and religious society.
Yep.
Right, where they're taught the 10 Commandments. Yep. They read that. It's an important part of their lives. They, you and I were talking off air about Yoram Hazony. I love how Yoram talks about the intergenerational transitions of values. Grandparents, they live near each other. They raise. So you got good kids, being raised. Then they go into national service. So they're dutiful, employees. Mm-hmm. So and that contributes to part of its success.
100%. Listen, I think when you have a society that has to either go to the army or go to national service, you have an idea that comes from the fact that, you have responsibility at a young age, right? At 18 years old, you are now entrusted with the defense of the nation. That's a big deal. I mean, I don't think we have that to the same degree here in America, which is, we can get into that discussion on a different time, but, I don't think we have that as much. And so those guys, they have that responsibility, but they also then have this kind of hierarchy they have to learn how to work through, which is the military. And when they come out of it on the other side, the way I describe it is like it's kind of turning a rock to a diamond, right? They have to go through this pressure cooker. They have to go through these intense experiences. And then they get out on the other side and it's like, okay, well, now let me go take this world by the horns and like go ride it and actually go and make something out of it. I have my responsibility. I know my direction and go,
Jordan Kastrinsky is the co-founder and Israel director of the Colorado Israel Chamber of Commerce. Bro, so I was there right around Memorial Day. And then the Independence Day, and they're right next to each other.
Yes,
they're literally like a day or two apart. And here's the thing I noticed: there was no like anti-Israel sentiment among the Israelis. It was tremendous national pride.
Yes.
All because of what you were just talking about there. Like they love their country.
Yes.
I remember talking to my colleagues and to my wife, my spouse and my family going, you kind of get a little bit of that around the 4th of July, Veterans Day, Memorial Day, but you don't get it nearly to the extent. I mean, they shut down everything. They have these big celebrations in the streets, and the men are all dancing together. The women are all dancing together. Flags everywhere. They all love their country. It's like, oh, that national pride was just so cool.
And it was during a war year. Think of it like that. Actually a time when there's a lot of reasons to be kind of the opposite, right? To feel very attacked, to feel upset. People have died. But this was like, that's how it is. That's how it is.
We only got a few minutes more, but I do want to talk about the future of Israel, the Abraham Accords, those types of things. Are you optimistic? New administration coming in. Trump just had a very strong statement about the hostages. Hamas, you release them or all hell is going to rain down on you. From your perspective, are you optimistic about what the next few years are going to look like for Israel?
I'm always optimistic, and I think in Israel you have to be an optimist. There's a very famous line from David Ben Gurion: to be an optimist in Israel, you have to believe in miracles, and so I do. I also would say that in general, I see that what we've seen during this war is that Israel has support from its neighbors, from moderate Arab countries. And even if they're doing it through back channels and not always in the forefront of the, kind of political sphere or in the dialogue space, they're supporting Israel. And so I think the trajectory for Israel in terms of connecting with its neighbors, building itself up even more as a powerhouse than it already is definitely positive. I also now think with the Trump administration coming in, hopefully he seems to know how to speak the language of the region. And that comes with a lot of force and power. And I hope in time, with that kind of understanding and that focus, he's able to transform the region into something that's a little bit more stable. We get rid of the Iranian access from it and actually move to a time where we can live in prosperity and peace.
I'm talking with Jordan Kastrinsky. He's the co-founder and Israel director of the Colorado Israel Chamber of Commerce. By the way, if you're a business, even if you're an entrepreneur, a sole proprietor, join the chamber because they host these events where Israeli leaders and Colorado leaders are getting together, and there's so much opportunity there. You got to join them. Go to coloradoisrael.org, coloradoisrael.org. We'll continue this conversation. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Aguayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. The historic border wall continues to be built at the Texas-Mexico border as the latest panels are being installed in Starr County. This comes after Texas received a victory from a federal appeals court that ruled the Biden administration cannot cut the razor wire being installed along both the southern border and the border with New Mexico. I took a trip to the border to see the newly installed barrier for myself. Governor Greg Abbott has been working hard along with Operation Lone Star, installing the razor wire at the Texas-Mexico border. As you can see, it's right here behind me. This triple strand razor wire is about 8 feet tall. It travels all the way to the ground, and this is the barrier to help keep illegal migrants from entering into the state of Texas. It also runs right along the Rio Grande River, and we're standing between Texas and New Mexico. Abbott saying that he wanted to stop that illegal migration coming in from New Mexico and entering the state of Texas. Now, since the start of Operation Lone Star, Governor Greg Abbott has decreased the amount of illegal migration into the state of Texas by 86%. Something he says he wants to keep doing, keep securing that southern border with the new border czar, Tom Homan, who he just recently met with. And they are both coming together and working together with plans on how to stop illegal migration and how to help with President Donald Trump's mass deportation plan. President Donald Trump is sending a strong message to the terror group of Hamas as his return to the White House approaches. Trump taking to Truth Social to say, quote, "Everybody is talking about the hostages who are being held so violently, inhumanely, and against the will of the entire world in the Middle East. But it's all talk and no action. Please let this truth serve to represent that if the hostages are not released prior to January 20th, 2025, the date that I proudly assume office as President of the United States, there will be all hell to pay in the Middle East. And for those in charge who perpetrated these atrocities against humanity, those responsible will be hit harder than anybody has been hit in the long and storied history of the United States of America. Release the hostages now," he said. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is suing investment giants BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street for allegedly breaking the law and pushing green energy initiatives, leading to higher electricity costs for consumers. The lawsuit claims that the three major investment firms conspired to, quote, "artificially constrict the market for coal through anti-competitive trade practices," meaning they leveraged their shares in coal companies to push green energy initiatives, reducing the competition in the coal market and leading to higher costs. The lawsuit says the companies violated state and federal laws.
Welcome back to the
Something
Jeff and
Paxton
Bill
said
Show. All right,
he
Bill,
won't tolerate.
you know what
BlackRock,
time it is. People are waking up and they're going, "I need my daily dose of You Choose the News."
Yes, it's time for us to get a little stupid. Yeah, it's a portion of the show that we call You Choose the News, everybody's favorite fake radio news game show. I've spent mere moments this morning scouring the interwebs for dumb stories about us humans and giving them more ridiculous headlines so that we can play this fake radio news game show. Why? Because nobody in charge is awake at this hour, and this is how we are going to waste valuable airtime. So, shh, it's a secret. Do not tell them, okay? All righty. Here we go, gentlemen, and wonderful thing is going to happen. We have a special guest. Jordan in the studio is going to help us out, and he is going to get to choose story number 3. Okay, Jordan, so remember your reputation and public acceptance.
Yeah,
is
we
on the line here.
apologize ahead of time.
Yes, there's no pressure here. All righty, gentlemen, Jeff Hunt, Blake Olson in the newsroom, and Jordan Kastrinsky here, special guest in the studio. Here are your headline choices, gentlemen. Headline number 1. Bart Simpson approved. Headline number 2, spanking for Christmas. Headline number 3, caring, not in the handbook. And headline number 4, the American experience. Mr. Hunt, your choice,
Let's
sir.
start with the American experience, please.
Yes, the American experience. The British band sports team has gotten the American experience. The indie group has scored 2 top 10 albums over in the UK, and they are coming over to America to launch their US tour. And they promptly were robbed at gunpoint on the very first day in Sacramento. Yes, Sacramento, 8:45 in the morning. They were setting up for their opening date of their tour, and they stopped at Starbucks for breakfast, and they were robbed. The guy came over the gun to the van and took all the electronics. Worst part about it is even took their passports. And they're like, this is the first day of the time that we're in. Some of the band members were in Starbucks at the time. So they're like, no, go back in, get away from the guy with the gun. And so, man. Yeah. So the very first day in America, and they're now official Americans. They've been robbed at gunpoint. Yes.
Yeah, that does make you. I don't think that happens too often in Israel. I'll be honest, because like on every street corner is like a group of 18-year-old girls with M16s.
Exactly.
Yes.
You feel quite safe there, actually.
Okay. Blake Olson in the newsroom. Your choice, sir. Bart Simpson approved, spanking for Christmas, or caring, not in the handbook.
Bart Simpson approved.
Yes, Bart Simpson approved. Here, we are going to talk about one of the oldest tricks in the book. Those Simpson fans will know that Bart Simpson oftentimes calls Moe's Tavern to ask for people like Seymour Butts or Mike Roach. You know, they always turn into some dirty jokes, but that was the source of inspiration recently for a couple of Texas A&M fans. Now, the Aggies this past weekend were looking for a spot in the SEC championship game. Tickets to the game were so hard to come by. Even though the field seats over 100,000 fans, tickets to the game, over $1,100 for a single ticket to the game. So if you're a struggling college student, you don't have that kind of scratch. What do? You use your ingenuity and Photoshop skills. During the game, the Texas A&M Police Department tweeted out they arrested 2 young men wearing reflective vests and hard hats who had entered the stadium using fake construction credentials.
Wow.
Yes. Now, they actually, a reporter in Texas decided to do some digging. As it turns out, the guys were Bart Simpson inspired when they chose the name for their construction workers. One gentleman went by the name of Harry Azrak. And so you can, there's a C in there. The other one I cannot say legitimately on the air, but it is offensive if you understand what it's saying. And there are so many few times that I'm like, I don't think I should really say that. So yes, they have Harry Azrak, and the other one is something that I can't say on the air. So imagine how offensive it possibly could be. I will share it with the gentleman off the air, and anybody that hits on the text messages, either on YouTube's videos, Rumbles, whatever it is, I'll share with you the name as well, so you can participate that way. But no, can't do that. No word on what charges the young pranksters are going to be facing, but they weren't the only ones that found themselves in hot water, because of course there was a man that was kicked off the campus for riding around a longhorn steer before the game, which seems totally safe.
Dude, that was wild to watch. But you can get so far into places with a vest and a ladder.
Oh, yeah. Back in the day, it was a pizza. You can get backstage by just saying, I'm delivering pizza to the band. Yes. Now they check IDs and stuff. Before, you could just get through. Yes, because what band doesn't want pizza? And even if they catch you, free pizza. You know, they can't be that mad at you. All righty. Now, Jordan, your choice, sir. You only have 2 to choose from: spanking for Christmas or caring not in the handbook.
I think we have to go for spanking for Christmas.
Oh, you are now my
if he was going to do this.
I love Jordan. Now, many people in Germany associate Christmas with the Feast of St. Nicholas, but certain parts of Germany have the darker side, the Krampus, where the hairy devil has different names according to the region as part of their folkloric festivities. Recently, reporters filmed the 2023 festivities, and it's now changing the rules. They are no longer going to be spanking young women with the cow's horn. Yes, during the celebrations at night, part of it is called the catching. The so-called dressed up men run around and they chase women. They then hold them and then hit them in the buttocks repeatedly with a cow's horn. We have no idea how this started or how much beer had to be imbibed before this became a thing. But they're no longer going to do that during the celebration of Krampus.
So. Yeah, Me Too got to them too.
Yes, exactly. No more cow horn spankings, and we all are worse off for it. All righty, back to you, gentlemen. That's the end of You Choose the News.
Well, it's been a wonderful 6 o'clock hour. Thank you to Jordan Kastrinsky for joining us live in studio. Learn more about the Colorado Israel Chamber by going to coloradoisrael.org. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. Oh, that's a great follow-up. And I am sharing it on the text messages.
Dude,
I will not do it on the air.
Amount of text messages.
Yeah. But I will. I'll be happy to share it with each and every one of you. But I'm not saying that on the air. I shared it with Jeff, and he's like, "Oh yeah, don't say that."
And they're all dudes.
Yes, of course,
except for Susanna, who is not happy.
That's okay. It's again, and I love Suzanne. I love the fact that she participates so much and listens. And I just kind of said that my philosophy is I don't see there's any point in growing up if you don't get to be childish sometimes. That's kind of the fun. That's kind of what it should be. And I embrace that all the time. In fact, let me tell you the story. Okay, I'm going to take a moment here, personal privilege, to explain some of my juvenile behavior at times. Recently, we were at a very nice event that was honoring my mom for an award that she was getting. Really cool award. And during it, they were handing out some of those bags that you can take to go shopping for, but they kind of bunch up into like a little tiny pouch, and so they have a string on the end. Well, I noticed that the pouch, when you stuff it into the pouch, it becomes almost pointed like a teardrop. And so I'm there at the table with my kids, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, ooh, weapon. So I start swinging it around. I'm like, I'm going to hurt you, and doing this. And one of my daughters looks at me, and she goes, Dad, there are over 60 people here. A lot of them have the bags, and you're the only one doing this. And I'm like, I sense a severe lack of creativity in the rest of this crowd. I'm like, no, maybe you're just immature. I'm like, says you. Yeah. So yeah, I sometimes see things a little differently than most, and that's a good example.
Good for your kids.
Yes, it is. Yes, to understand that Dad's kind of a fool sometimes. Yes, and I get to tell that to the listeners here each and every day, and I appreciate it.
Yes, and KKP is tapping into the fact that because of my last name, I dealt with juvenile jokes, and I continue for my entire life.
I am sure. I am sure of that one, my friend. I am sure. There wasn't much you could do with Thorpe. There was not much there.
No. But I did take advantage of it one time when I was in middle school because there happened to be a giveaway for a T-shirt.
Oh, yes.
And I filled out a certain name with my name.
Yeah.
Mike was the first name.
Nice.
And then it won and was read for a week over the PA system.
Nice job. I think
so. There's a juvenile side to all of us.
I might have shared the story on air before, but when I was traveling in high school with the speech and debate team, I would often disappear and then go to the white paging telephone service and ask for people to be paged. and it was never appropriate. And it got to the point where the coach in charge, a really good friend of the family, got it known for years, would turn we're in the airport, and you hear something on the white paging telephone. Looking, he goes, "Thorpe, will you stop it?" Like, sorry. Yeah, he knew exactly as soon as he heard the name. Yeah.
Well, it definitely blew up our text message line. So if you want to know the name that Billy was referencing during You Choose the News, go ahead and text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, and it does not at all reflect our good friend over at Dan Caplis Law. But he'll give it to you there. 720-819-5115. By the way, good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. We're off and running. We've got a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into it. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson, Rory O'Neill is going to join us. There's political chaos in South Korea after its president declared martial law. How does this impact the U.S. economy, and will the surprise assault on Syria's city of Aleppo by opposition forces undo peace efforts in the Middle East? It's like the whole world changed overnight. We were watching this come in yesterday on the news, and then it carried in all night. They had to have a quorum of the cabinet in South Korea. President, martial law, the Congress not liking it, trying to undo the martial law. It was in South Korea. South Korea, that's the home of K-pop. It's not like the place where you see martial law implemented, Bill.
Yeah, this was a little crazy. And the fact that Parliament was like, no, we undo your martial law. What the hell is happening?
Protests and students in the streets and all that stuff. So,
and it seems like some of it is linked to a strike of doctors that has been going on for weeks, which is really weird. And the strike is somewhat strange because with some of the browsing I was doing yesterday seems to be centered around they want to expand the amount of applicants that are accepted into the medical schools over there. So the doctors are going on strike because there will be more doctors. It's very weird.
You know what that sounds like is the proposition to expand veterinarian care.
Yeah, exactly.
And the people who came out against it, veterinarians.
Yes, veterinarians.
Because they didn't want competition.
Yeah, so that it's really weird. And so I think it's very strange that in part the president's solution to this is, aha, I know what we shall do. Martial law. It's a weird place to jump to.
And it literally
doctors,
hasn't been
martial law.
Implemented since like the 80s, last time there was actual conflict between North Korea and South Korea. So
it's just crazy.
And South Korea, I went to grad school where South Koreans were the largest population there next to Americans.
Really?
And so my neighbors, kimchi and strong Christian element in South Korea. It's just not a place where you would think martial and K-pop.
No.
Who's the guy that Gangnam Style?
Oh yeah,
that was South Korean.
Yeah.
Wasn't that South Korean too?
Psy. Yeah, Gangnam Style. Yeah,
and now you're like martial law.
Yeah, and there's a couple of South Korean artists actually have songs that are doing pretty well in the charts and stuff coming over here. And I tutored South Korean in journalism, law, and ethics in college as well. So just not the martial law type. It's
Right.
very strange.
That's why it caught us a lot off guard. So we're going to talk to
strange.
Rory O'Neill, national correspondent with NBC Radio and all that. But first, news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, guys. Great show so far this morning on this Wednesday, 27 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 56 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, border security, the top priority for the incoming Senate Republicans in a closed-door meeting Tuesday. Incoming Majority Leader John Thune of South Dakota laid out a two-step process to pass Trump's agenda without needing help from Democrats. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham says the GOP's goal is to not just finish the wall, but to have eyes and ears on the border. Early this week, DJT made it clear to Hamas not to jack with us on hostages. He wants Americans freed or they'll have hell to pay. Scott Jennings on CNN.
Yeah, thank God we have a president-elect who's willing to say it. We've had Americans held hostage since October the 7th, and we've lacked a president that had the testicular fortitude to get our people back. This is outrageous that these Americans were taken and murdered, and we've basically stood back. It's wrong. And now we're going to have a strong America. And I think Donald Trump's going to have far better success. We had world at peace when he was president. We had a peace agreement in the Middle East. But when you take Americans hostage and you murder Americans, you better damn well know the president of the United States is going to do something about it. And we've not known that for 4 years.
Jordan Kastrinsky, Colorado-Israel Chamber of Commerce, member of the IDF, in studio with the fellas last hour. He appreciates any support Israel receives after October 7th.
In Israel, it kind of sometimes feels that when, the media is pushing out all this, all these images of the protesters and stuff, you feel very isolated in Israel because you feel like you're kind of between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, you have an enemy that wants to eat your guts and wants to literally destroy you. And on the other side, you have people who somehow buy into this groupthink death cult that's going on, and it can feel very isolating.
A German court says a former guard at a Nazi concentration camp is fit to stand trial. Earlier this year, a regional court decided that 100-year-old Gregor Formanek was not fit to stand trial due to his mental condition. On Tuesday, a higher court in Frankfurt overturned that decision. 47 is reportedly considering replacing his defense secretary nominee. The Wall Street Journal says that current nominee Pete Hegseth might be replaced by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis to head the Pentagon. Hegseth has been facing scrutiny over multiple misconduct allegations. The jury in the deadly New York City subway chokehold trial will continue deliberations today. The jury got the case Tuesday and asked the judge to reread some of their legal instructions. Former Marine Daniel Penny is accused once again of using a fatal chokehold to subdue an out-of-control homeless man who was threatening passengers' lives on a New York City subway train last year. The Supreme Court will hear arguments Wednesday in a case challenging Tennessee's ban on gender-affirming treatment for transgender minors. The case before the conservative majority court seeks to resolve the question of whether the ban constitutes a violation of the 14th Amendment's equal protection clause. The Nuggets celebrating last night after a 119-115 home win over the Warriors in NBA Cup group play. Nikola Jokic, 38 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists. They're in Cleveland tomorrow night. 25 in Parker, 24 in Wheat Ridge, 27 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue on Wednesday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Fair weather will dominate the forecast for Denver and the Front Range and all of Colorado from today through midday Sunday. Mostly sunny to partly sunny and dry. Mid to upper 50s today, mid to upper 20s tonight. Low to mid 50s for highs for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday's highs mid to upper 50s. Same for Sunday, Sunday increasingly cloudy. Late Sunday night and Monday, a chance of snow showers, and early next week will be colder. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Bill, the text messages coming in.
I know, it's great.
Oh,
yes. And while you were talking earlier, I had to share it with Blake. He just lost it. He's just like, no, that's not the name. I'm like, yes. And he knows someone that has that first name that went to Texas A&M. And he goes, oh my God, this is hilarious. So yeah, but hit me up on text message and I can share with you the name that cannot be mentioned on the air that was part of a joke or a prank at Texas A&M University this past weekend, where a couple of college students ingeniously used the Bart Simpson gimmick of calling Moe's Tavern in order to pretend to be construction workers. And they used fake names, and their fake names are hilarious, but I cannot say one of them on the air. But I will be happy to share it with anybody that texts in, anybody at all. I'll let you know. But oh my God, it's a good one. Yes.
And we're getting insight into Bill as a middle school student.
Oh, completely. Yes. There's a part of my brain that has not advanced past 6th grade. And I embrace that.
But there's
sometimes to my,
and this is what Suzanne
detriment.
just doesn't understand either. It lives dormant in most men.
Yeah. Yes.
Every once in a while,
it comes out.
The boys get together and
yes,
it comes out.
Yes, it does. And it depends on who is around you and what the situation is, and sometimes how much you drink. There's the whole level of things that can influence when that 6th grader comes out. And if it's with boys and guys that you've known for a while, it's going to come out real quickly versus people you've known in your adult life. If it goes back to childhood, yeah.
We were watching the UT Texas A&M game over the weekend, and people my wife didn't realize this, but like college football games are bigger than NFL games.
Yeah, in parts of the country. Yeah.
Yep.
When
like
you get to
bigger
Ohio,
audience because it's well over 100,000. Mile High is 77,000.
78,000.
78,000.
Yeah, it's 78. Yeah.
And the Texas A&M stadium's like 110,000.
Yeah.
And it was.
Yeah. And isn't it like? I think it's Nebraska Stadium that becomes like one of the largest cities in the state.
when everybody gets together for that.
It shows up the stadium. It's one of the largest population centers in the state. So it makes sense. And in Texas, I had a friend that I know that actually worked here for a while that went to A&M. And it is. She grew up here and went there. And she said it's different down there how they approach their football. Is that it's like hockey in Minnesota. It's different.
Yeah.
They just approach the sport differently. Yeah.
And they had Dude Perfect. Game Day did. It was a ton of fun. Well, great. In a second, Rory O'Neill's going to join us. But first, are you going to start the new year dealing with the same old joint pain? Oh, gosh. Especially as you're getting older. It's not fun. You're losing sleep. You're not able to take walks. or do what you love because your knees or hips are hurting you, look, you don't have to deal with it anymore. Take action now and get the pain relief you deserve for 2025. Call QC Kinetics. Say goodbye to shoulder and back pain. QC Kinetics local medical professionals are waiting for you to use their advanced protocols in regenerative medicine that has helped tens of thousands of people. I'm talking lasting relief. And this is not drugs. This isn't surgery, right? You can address those achy joints without having to go down that route. You can do it with your own body's healing properties. Joel in our office, he's been using them and he's playing more golf than he ever has before. QC Kinetics uses the healing properties of your own body to attack the root causes of your pain, revitalizing your joints so you can move again. This is the future of medicine. If you've been told surgery is your best or only option, you deserve a second opinion. Find out if all natural regenerative medicine is right for you. Call QC Kinetics. The consultation's totally free, and you can use your HSA and FSA dollars. Live your best life in 2025. Get started now. Here's their phone number. Let's kick it off, guys. Brand new year, and you can live healthier, more active than you ever have before. 303-900-8986. That's 303-900-8986 with locations in Aurora, Superior, Highlands Ranch, and the Springs. All right. There's political chaos in South Korea after its president declared martial law. How does this impact the U.S. economy? What's going on there? And will the surprise assault on the Syrian city of Aleppo by opposition forces undo peace efforts in the Middle East? Rory O'Neill, you know that name. He's regularly on our program, national correspondent with NBC Radio. Rory, thanks so much for joining the program.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. A lot to cover today.
Oh, my goodness. And it happened so fast. So let's start with South Korea. What happened there?
Yes, Tuesday night, the president there, President Yoon, declared martial law. He said that there are protest groups organizing against him that are supported by North Korea. But we didn't give in any evidence to substantiate those claims. But by declaring martial law, you'd put the military in charge of everything. Even the government would run the press operations there. But the parliament gathered, even fighting through some of the members of the military to gather to vote on a motion to force the president to end the militarization and the martial law. And so the whole thing was over in about 6 hours. So as we speak right now, there are protesters, I think, surrounding the president's home, calling for him to resign. There was a candlelight vigil in Seoul as well in the past few hours, calling on President Yoon to step down. And in the rest of the government there, the parliament, they are taking steps to impeach him, perhaps by the end of the week.
Now, I've read conflicting reports kind of on both sides of this. One saying that the president, not very popular, barely won, didn't even get a majority last time. But then also that the opposition party that controls the Congress there has been bringing up all the cabinet officials on impeachment charges. And so it seems like there's a lot of political conflict in South Korea.
Sound familiar, by the way?
Yeah, exactly.
And look, South Korea has been relatively stable politically for about 50 years now. Obviously, one of our biggest trading partners, Samsung, is from Korea, the LG, Kia, Hyundai. We have major economic ties with South Korea. Also, big military ties. The largest U.S. military base outside of the U.S. is in Korea. We've got about 30,000 troops there. So there's a strategic importance to this area and an economic one as well. So that's why the U.S. is paying close attention to what's happening here. Not really picking sides, but there's been this turmoil for a while, again, with the liberal parliament sort of going after members of the president's administration. After this declaration of martial law, his chief of staff and others have resigned in protest. So let's see. It doesn't sound like he'll be President Yoon much longer.
Yeah, it seems to be the case. Any concerns about North Korea trying to capitalize on this moment?
They could, but, there's such a strong U.S. military presence there. It's the most mined border in the world. Both sides are already, raring to go here. It doesn't seem like it's going to tip over into anything. But it's certainly a test of that country's relatively young democracy, and we're seeing it in action here.
Well, there was also a surprise assault on the Syrian city of Aleppo. Now, Syria hasn't been in the news for years. All of a sudden now you have opposition forces trying to undo peace efforts there. Give us some insight. And by the way, we're talking with Rory O'Neill, national correspondent, NBC Radio.
Yeah, so about a half dozen different groups have all come together now to try to push back and overthrow the government there and President Assad in Syria. Now, Assad has been in there for 8 years now with the backing of Russia and Iran. Well, right now, Russia's military is preoccupied with some other things, Iran too. So the big supporters of Assad in Syria, Russia and Iran, may have dropped the ball when it comes to supporting Syria at this point. But these rebel forces have now taken over most of Aleppo, even a military base outside of it, and some other facilities around it. So that's a significant move. Aleppo is the second largest city in Syria. So it's a significant move by these groups. Now, this is a case of the devil you know. Assad is a killer, right? A mass murderer. We know that. And a dictator. But these rebel groups may actually be worse. So it's not as if these are democratic patriots who are storming the Capitol.
Rory O'Neill, national correspondent for NBC Radio, joining Jeff and Bill live. Got a question about how you feel Assad might handle these rebels. Before, in some of the protests, he was fairly brutal. There have been some accusations of chemical weapons being used. How far do you think he will go in order to maintain control, especially as you outlined? Iran is occupied, Russia is occupied, and the rest of the world is somewhat occupied with other larger conflicts. Could that provide cover for him to be especially brutal?
It may well. And we're already seeing Russian forces now join Syrian aerial teams. Jets are now targeting some of these rebel groups and strongholds and to win back some territory. So we are seeing Russia get more involved in the fight already. But to your point, we know that Assad has used chemical weapons on his own people. So he's not above doing any of this stuff in order to retain power. And that's the real fear here. Sadly, we do know that a lot of innocent people, women and children, have been swept up and killed in this conflict. And this is something that started to bubble up, I guess, 4 or 5 days ago. Let's see how things unfold in the next 72 hours.
Rory O'Neill, NBC national news correspondent. I want to ask you about some of those rebel groups, because what should Americans, and especially our audience, be watching for when they see news about this conflict? And what I'm looking at is, you'd think, okay, Assad, bad guy, rebel groups, oh, they're trying to topple the bad guy. They must be then the good guys. But you're outlining that those rebel groups could actually be the worse guys than the bad guy that's there. What should our listeners be looking for, and what should we be paying attention to about these rebel groups? Why should we be concerned?
Yeah, I think the New York Times called it a geopolitical cauldron. How about that? Now simmering in Syria after some of these rebel attacks. And again, it's because many of them are strong Islamic forces that are well armed and particularly brutal, even on the rebel side of things. And it seems that this is how I compare. I'm a New England Patriots fan. It's like watching the Jets and Dolphins play. You're like, oh, I don't like either one of them.
Oh, that's great.
And I don't want either one of them to win. But that's almost the kind of a situation that you're in, because one is almost worse than the other.
Talking to Rory O'Neill, national correspondent, NBC Radio. So Joe Biden not getting to saunter off the last few months of his presidency. He's got to deal with South Korea now bubbling up, Syria, what's happening in the Middle East, Russia, Ukraine. This is going to be quite a foreign policy last 2 months for Joe Biden.
It seems to be. He's wrapping up his first trip to Africa, and Donald Trump may be inheriting a mess. Maybe some of these things get wrapped up in the next few weeks. Wait and see. But clearly, this issue in this situation in Syria has dragged on for about a 13-year civil war now. And now you've got this patchwork of factions who are trying to come together to bring about change, but it may not be change for the better. So there are a lot of different irons in the fire here, and there is no one simple solution to any of these things. So it is going to be a difficult transition as Biden exits the world stage and President-elect Trump comes in.
Rory O'Neill, national correspondent, NBC Radio. Thanks so much for taking time to join us, giving us insight. We'll continue to track this. Hope to have you back. Excellent analysis. Thanks so much, Rory.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks. Talk to you soon.
All right. Gosh, I mean, that kind of blows up quickly in South Korea. I mean, as you and I were talking, it's just not stuff you expect to see out of South Korea, right?
No.
A relatively stable, very Christian country, lots of big churches. That was my experience working with pastors being trained to go back to South Korea and then K-pop and music. And
there's a lot of cultural exchanges, as Rory outlined, tons and tons of trade. I mean, it's amazing to see where some of those Korean automakers are now versus where they were 10, 15 years ago, and how dominant they are inside of the American automotive market. And the one thing we wouldn't guess inside of a country like South Korea is that a leader that was somewhat embroiled in controversy would decide, aha, I know the solution. Martial law.
Martial law.
What?
Yeah, that's not.
It's weird.
And then I didn't know his chief of staff resigned. That's not a sign of.
There have been
support.
a lot of scandals that have come, and he's relatively new in the office as well. And so this is not something that you want, and especially in that region, because you don't want to have the neighbor of North Korea all of a sudden look like they're on shaky ground and look like, there is some internal conflict there, because that will embolden what Kim Jong-un wants to do. And he's playing real nice with the Russians right now. And that's a little spooky as far as what he's going to have the ability and what he thinks. He's not just fighting the sea anymore, launching missiles into the sea because he's angry at Godzilla or whatever the hell it is. Don't know what that is. So this can embolden him and give him this opportunity to, maybe flex his muscles a little bit more and also try to create some problems inside of South Korea as long as they're having political issues. So
North Korea is a disaster. I've read a number of books on people that have escaped from it and the famines that take place there, the weird God worship they have towards their leaders. Lack of religious freedom. There was a point where there were folks in a village that were caught with a Bible. And the leader, this was prior to the current leader, Kim Jong-un, but previous leader to that, put him down and ran him over with a steamroller.
Yeah.
For having a Bible.
Yeah. And it's and did the steamroller because it's slower, because it takes time. Yeah. There's a probably about 12 years ago, I got a chance to interview a guy who escaped from North Korea, and he talked about some of the forced service and things that happened. And he said that he ended up having a really, really, really good job where he was indoors and he was basically repairing small machinery until the day that he dropped the manual typewriter down the stairs. That's when he was reassigned to work outside in the cold. And he said that was punishment. And so how that was done. The other thing that talking to him about was the large percentage of people that escape North Korea that then try to go back, that have some remorse about leaving their family behind.
Because, their families get punished.
Yep, exactly. And so they're worried about that. They can't check on their family. And also they have a hard time breaking that cycle that they've been indoctrinated inside of North Korea. And so the outside world can be very difficult for them to navigate. And at least, even though that structure was oppressive and awful, at least they understood it. And you see that in some stories of prisoners where they've been in prison for so long, when they get back out, they can't function. Exactly. Where Red talks about that, he can't go to the bathroom unless someone gives him permission, because that's what he's had to do for so long. And so that breaking that habit is nearly impossible.
And then on the border of North Korea, in the northern border is China.
Yes.
And China has all of these population problems with these one-child policies.
Yeah.
So older men do not have women, because what happened in the one-child policy is that they ended up killing the little girls because it was more beneficial for the family to have a young boy.
Yeah.
So
they're horrible stories about that.
And now you have sex trafficking that's taking place from North Korea as these girls are trying to escape into China. They're being sold to these men, and it's really heartbreaking.
Oh yeah, it is. And there's a documentary that was released a number of years ago, and it's from North Korea, or China. She's from China. And she went back and visited her family and does some really, really heart-wrenching interviews with family members about that one-child policy and what they went through. And she has an uncle that tells a story that will churn your stomach, that you're like, how is this something that a human would be able to do? And you're like, wow, it has to do with his daughter and what happened and what he did to his daughter because of the one-child policy. And it is
like hiding
brutal.
her,
no,
or harming her.
Death, yes, death, and the short story is basically leaving her out in the elements to die and walking by her day after day, going to and from work and seeing her slowly pass away, and making that choice twice a day. That's brutal.
So stupid.
That's brutal.
It's so stupid. We fought that in DC for years and years and years, and now they're desperately trying to figure it out as they have this big population crunch coming.
Yeah,
the amount of human suffering is just
it's awful. Yeah, it's horrible.
We'll never fully grasp it. Well, on a lighter note, a great guy that can help you if you're facing a problem is Dan Kaplis and Dan Kaplis Law. Dan suggests you should choose a lawyer who shares your values, because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. And unlike the crazy commies in China, Dan's pro-life, pro-family, and pro-America. That matters, right? You want somebody that shares your values on your team. And Dan has such a sterling reputation in Colorado that if you go into court, Dan Kaplis Law supporting you, it's going to send a message to everybody involved about the type of person you are. Dan has dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. But more than just being a great guy with solid values, Dan is the ace in the hole when it comes to winning these. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Kaplis Law is the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Kaplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. He accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that Dan can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So look, chances are you're not in a car accident right now and you need to call Dan Kaplis Law. But when that happens and you're having to deal with insurance companies, law enforcement, God forbid, an ambulance ride, family members, all the craziness that comes with that, you don't want to have to be Googling Dan Kaplis Law. You want it in your contacts so that you can pull it up right there. Here's the phone number. Get ready for it. 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or hit dankaplislaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLIS law.com. We'll continue with your calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Wayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. A panel of judges on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals unanimously ruled that the federal government has the authority to deport this hour, I'm Christina Wayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. Joe Biden taking some heat after announcing his plans to give Africa $1 billion to help with roads and electricity.
And today, I'm announcing over $1 billion in new humanitarian support for Africans displaced from homes by historic droughts and food insecurity. We know African leaders and citizens are seeking more than just aid. You seek investment. So the United States is expanding our relationship all across Africa, from assistance to aid.
Many taking to social media, pointing out the $36 trillion national debt and the people of North Carolina that are struggling to rebuild after losing everything, with some living in tents in the freezing cold weather. A court in Vietnam has upheld the death sentence for real estate tycoon Trong My Lan, but said it could be commuted to life if she reimburses some $11 billion. That's 3/4 of what she defrauded in the country's biggest financial scheme. The scale of her fraud shocked the nation, with analysts raising questions about whether other banks or businesses had similarly erred. It has also dampened Vietnam's economic outlook and made foreign investors jittery at a time when Vietnam has been trying to position itself as a home for businesses pivoting their supply chains away from China. That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Awayo, Salem News Channel.
All right. Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Good news for chickens, not for the rest of us. All eggs sold in Colorado must be cage-free starting in January, which means those egg prices going up, 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 up. This is from our friends over at Fox 31. All eggs sold in the state of Colorado will be cage-free starting January 1st, 2025. This is because of a law that was passed and signed into law in 2020. First part of the law already went into effect in 2023. The portion of the law requires hens to be given more usable space in order for their eggs to be sold in the state. The portion of the law going into effect in 2025 requires hens to be in cage-free housing systems. There are a few specific requirements farmers have to meet for this to be the case, including giving hens a certain amount of usable floor space. Egg producers that cannot meet these new standards cannot sell eggs in Colorado stores. The Colorado Department of Agriculture said farmers both across the country and in the state have been getting ready for the new and more stringent requirements since the law was originally passed in 2020.
Thought the music was over.
And then this is just going to make stuff more expensive. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. So for those of us at the Hunt Family Ranch, it's not a big deal because we don't buy eggs. We have lots of chickens.
Yeah.
Like 20 of them.
Good.
So
eggs,
we
too.
just, I think you've had some.
Oh,
right?
yes, I have. They're awesome.
And they live totally range-free lives.
Yeah.
Not just cage-free.
No.
They wander around our little ranch all over the place. And but that means we have to deal with other things. We have an owl now. I don't know what to do with that.
Love owls.
But he's sitting there spying on our chickens. Hawks have come by. Coyotes have come by at one
looking
point.
for the babies. And
we got brand new babies coming too. But so for us, it's not that big of a deal. But for a lot of families that are barely getting by, I don't think this should be mandated.
Yeah. I would
Right.
agree with you.
Like if this is something that the consumer really feels passionate about, they have the option to go buy that and spend more money and send a message to the marketplace that we care how these chickens are being treated.
Yeah.
But if you're barely scraping by, single parent household, all that, so you don't have that luxury. Like you're just trying to make it work.
Yeah.
Eggs are an important part of cooking, protein, all that stuff. And having a progressive state mandate this upon everybody, I don't think is very fair.
Yeah. See, the thing is, now I understand why, as far as the animal care, and I do have a heart for that as far as what the goal is. But I agree with you that this should be a marketplace decision, and there should be an option, because right now, when you walk into the grocery store, they conveniently, of course, funnel you into the produce, because that's the freshest area. So it's going to inform you that everything inside the store is fresh and new and everything else. There's a psychological trick there. But you'll notice as you walk through the produce department in your local grocery store, there are two sections.
Yeah.
There's a portion there that is non-organic, and there's a portion that's organic. And if you want the organic apples, you can go and pick those. You can pick the other apples. You can go and get the organic lemons. You can get the organic blueberries. And for me and our household, it's price. This weekend, organic blueberries, cheaper than the other ones. I bought the organics. It just comes down to price for me at that point. And I think that's fair. And I think that it allows both the organic company and the other companies that use the pesticides to compete, because last weekend, I made the organic choice, and I've made the organic choice with other fruits and vegetables as well. Again, largely based on price. And I don't see any problem with offering cage-free eggs. And then you also have that competition. We currently have things like Eggland's Best. We have, no yolks. There are other options inside of those aisles that you can choose different things for your eggs, but they're not mandated. And that's where I agree with you. This whole idea of a mandate is just going to artificially raise prices for everybody else. And I don't necessarily see the benefit, where if it is such a strong benefit, and if the marketplace really wants it, let's let them make the choice. I have no problem with that. And I think it allows then people that are on a tighter budget to make different choices. And as you outlined, what I'm worried about is that family that is on that really tight budget, that now they're going to make a choice that isn't eggs. And chances are it could be something that is less healthy for those people in the family, because the processed foods are more times than not less expensive. And so I think this can have a negative consequence to people on the lower income strata that we're really, really trying to help. And if the eggs are really that good, being cage-free, then let's compete based on price and market share. And there could be some things the cage-free eggs offer. There could be, maybe they do different sizes. Maybe they deliver them differently. Maybe instead of 18, there's 32. Maybe instead of 12, it's 6. What are some things that are some areas inside of the marketplace where they could compete? But the mandate, I agree with you. The mandate's silly. It's a one-size-fits-all that doesn't work.
And then you get the whole progressives really love to ban some things while allowing other things to go totally unrestricted. So we have banned cage eggs, I guess. That's how you would pronounce it.
Chickens in cages.
Chicken in cage. We banned that. We banned plastic straws. The biggest
plastic
thing
bags
that
in the grocery
drives
stores.
me nuts is the plastic bags in the grocery stores, man.
That one doesn't drive me nuts as much.
Oh,
But
it drives me so crazy, because
Really?
then
Why? Tell
all the groceries that you have to wheel out that are free form in your cart, and then you put them in your car, and they just roll all around in your car.
See, we have the bag of bags. Now, okay, so everyone that has grown up in the last 30 years, all of you had that bag full of bunched up plastic bags from the grocery store, probably under the kitchen sink.
Yes.
Probably where it was. Now, we've just traded that for a different set of canvas bags that are all bunched up in a different cabinet inside of the kitchen. That's all it is. I've got 2 bags that I carry around in the trunk of my car because I oftentimes get text messages from the family early in the morning. Oh, can you pick up X, Y, and Z? And for me, I refuse to do the freeform stuff in the cart and stuff. I will bag them. But this is what makes me really, really mad. They were okay when they were doing the plastic bags, but now that I've got the canvas bags, no one in the grocery stores. I don't know what the onboarding process is. I don't know what the videos they watch or the training process. No one teaches them how to pack the bags. No one. No one has any clue how to put the stuffs inside of my bags. And here's the stupid thing. I organize it for you because I'm a little bit weird. That when I take the stuff out of the cart, I will group things together that should go into the bag together. And then I start taking them home. I'm like, the hell were you doing? It's ridiculous at times. For me, I just traded one lump of bags that used to be under the kitchen sink for another lump of bags that's now canvas bags that are under another kitchen cabinet. The one thing that I do, I hate the fact that we don't have the plastic bags as often anymore is because those were emergency dog poop bags.
Yeah,
I don't have those anymore.
That was another thing that was good.
Don't have those anymore, and that sucks. That really sucks.
We got some text messages here that, caging chickens is actually helpful for them because they peck and kill each other. And that's exactly true. I was just responding to Gabe. The term hen pecking.
Oh, yeah.
That's a term for a reason because they, especially if they see blood, other hens will peck the crud basically to the point of death of another chicken if they see blood. And so sometimes you actually have to put special little glasses on them.
Oh my God.
So chicken that glasses. They can't see the red and the blood from a chicken that's molting, or separate them out. We've had to move chickens to other ranches.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Because they will be pecked to death. So,
Yeah. So again, instead of, raising the kitchens,
it's not terribly, cruel to put them in cages either. No. Sometimes it protects them.
Yeah. And there are some with large operations that, yes, because that gets a little messy and gets a little awful. Right. But it still has to have competition.
How do you feel about this? Are you willing to pay the extra money for cage-free eggs, or are you just going to go without eggs? Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Wow, lots of text messages on this issue. We're talking you, and I'm talking about, yes, everybody in Colorado. If you're going to buy eggs, they're all going to be cage-free starting in January, thanks to the Democrats passing a law down at the state capitol in 2020. But lots of back and forth on the text message line, the Dan Caplis text message line. Some people saying, people shouldn't spend animals shouldn't spend their entire lives in cages. And that's what some of these egg producers are doing. It's animal abuse. But others going, but we shouldn't be using the government to force everybody into this one sector that's going to require people to spend more money on these eggs.
For me, it's the mandatory aspect of it. And I do have a heart for the chickens and I understand that. But if it is such a strong thing, I'm not certain that we have to mandate it per se, because as you outline, there are pluses and minuses, both for having them caged and confined versus having them roam free. There are other dangers that come with having them interact with the rest of the wildlife and everything else around. And so what does that happen? And again, we do it with organics. Why would we not give people a choice inside the store? That's why I have a pushback against the idea of mandatory electric vehicles. It should be a choice, and the marketplace can decide based on price and volume and a whole bunch of other things. And there's part of it that I also feel this inside of, in all honesty, of my hobby in snakes, that when you keep them at home, their enclosures and environments are vastly different than what breeders keep them in. Breeders keep them in tubs, and it's not necessarily cruel, but they don't have nearly the amount of space nor enrichment that a snake would have in someone's private collection. But that's how the breeders, just based on functionally what they have to do. Is it necessarily cruel or mean to the snake? No. Is it the best thing for them? No, not the best, but the best thing would be in the wild more times than not. But again, a snake's lifespan in the wild is about 4 or 5 years, where they can live up to 20 with some species in captivity. So it's a difference as far as what you're giving them as far as the lifestyle. And I would never tell breeders that they need to be doing it like private keepers do. And the same thing with cage-free eggs, that if you want to make that choice, you want to do that, that's great. I love that. Go right ahead. But I disagree with the idea of mandating it. I don't think as we talk about all the time, you can't mandate morality.
And then Gabe writing that maybe, California's going to be or Colorado is going to be a rich person state only. Welcome to Eastern California. Another person writing, caged eggs are going to now be the new cocaine in Colorado, sold on the black market.
Yes, exactly. Jeff's going to come in here with a trench coat and go, hey, buddy, want to buy some eggs?
So we sell our eggs, just one-on-one personal purchases.
Yeah,
a lot to like German families who like eggs that come directly from a farm because they sit out on the countertop.
Yes.
You don't have to refrigerate them.
No, you don't. But the way we do them, you have to.
Yeah,
so
isn't that interesting?
Process.
So like European families love our eggs, and we sell them to a few folks in Highlands Ranch.
That's so cool.
All right, we'll continue this conversation. Feel free to join us. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Yeah. It is 8 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You just woke up in the greatest country in history. We're off and running. We got a whole show planned for you of engaging discussions, critical analysis, most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Text messages still pouring in from the cage-free discussion because all of y'all, yes, all of y'all here in Colorado are going to be buying cage-free eggs come January. Thanks to the progressives down at the state capitol who felt it's necessary to ban caged chickens. But you want to use illicit drugs? Go ahead. Unrestricted abortion? Go ahead. It just goes to show everybody's about banning something. It just depends on what that something is. Text message here from Andrew. This is a good one. The cage-free thing is so dumb. Another move making liberals like myself look stupid. There's so many bigger fish to fry, and now my CVS in Denver no longer has any dairy because it was regulated too much, so I can't get my creamer quickly in the morning if I run out. Yay.
Yeah.
Welcome to the progressive dump. That's Colorado. Oh, boy. All right, I want to get into this hour because, oh, boy, Billy, I think you and I are going to have some words about this one. Fox News article on this, a big report coming out from Congress. COVID most likely leaked from Wuhan lab. Social distancing was not based on science. The Select Committee on COVID found also that Dr. Fauci testified that social distancing guidelines just sort of appeared. I want retribution. I want my pound of flesh for all the stupidity that our elected officials put us through around COVID. I don't think our country's had it. And I think this report can lay the foundation for, I don't know, maybe somebody to lose their job over this. But we'll get into that and more. First, news and comment for Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Morning. Throw them in the slammer, Jeff.
Whoo, boy.
Man, all of them. 29 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 56 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, it's a record-breaking year for fentanyl pill seizures in Colorado, but Agent Dave Olesky with the DEA says that the latest numbers are nothing to celebrate as they're working to keep the deadly drug out of here.
While we've made some progress, we can say, in terms of overdose deaths have gone down year over year across the nation. Here we're seizing more, but it really doesn't matter if we continue still to lose so many lives each year. Carfentanil, it's a synthetic opioid, so it's highly addictive, it's potent, but it's also cheap for the cartels to utilize this drug and manufacture. And so the one thing that the cartels are motivated by is money, right? It's greed.
According to the agency, a record 2.7 million pills were seized in 2024, with a month remaining in the year. The DEA also seized more than 250,000 pills containing an animal tranquilizer that you heard Dave talk about there, 100 times more potent than fentanyl last month alone on the western slope. DJT may be considering others for defense secretary. This comes as Pete Hegseth is embroiled in multiple misconduct allegations. A new report from the Wall Street Journal says Trump is mulling over a few people thinking about this, including Florida Governor Ron DeSantis as a replacement. CBS and the mainstream media.
What do you think about that, Blake? DeSantis going to SecDef?
Well, I think he'd be fantastic, but so would Hegseth. I mean, they fear Hegseth because he's aggressive and he wants to clean it all up. And I think DeSantis would be great. I mean,
you think it would be a step up for him from governor of Florida or step down?
I don't know. That's a great question. I would imagine it would be a step up as far as, I don't know, notoriety or exposure, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
So I'm a little torn on DeSantis. I think he's brilliant. I think he's strong on conservative values. I think he took Florida in the right direction. I think he's wonderful in that. And I also know that he's an introvert. And I'm not sure that you can become the president of the United States if you're an introvert. I think that was part of
I agree with that.
Donald Trump's brilliance was his ability to work the crowd, love people. Clinton had the same charisma, just loves being around people, could be around people all day, gets the energy from it. And Ron DeSantis doesn't. He's more of a policy-oriented guy. So can he make the leap to president? That's a question in my mind. I would like him to be president. I think he would do a fine job as president of the United States. And does SecDef get him there? Or does being the executive leader of the state of Florida get him there? I don't know.
It may be time for him because how long has he been in Florida? He's done so much.
And he's termed out. I think he's got 2 years left.
Okay.
Gates is gearing up to run for Gov.
Exactly. So I don't know. I think it'd be big for him. I think it'd be actually a step up. I would say that now, just given everything that he's accomplished in Florida. But I didn't realize that he wasn't a people person like you described there. So
he would rather, and I've heard this from multiple people, he's just very content reading bills, diving into policy nuances, getting into the weeds,
like that.
which is good, right?
Yeah.
But he's not going to host a 2-3 hour rally and engage with the media in the same way that DJT does. So
yeah,
I don't know.
That's true. It's unfortunate about Hegseth because I think he'd be great. I don't know. There's still hope there, but we shall see. But
the lesson to all of us is follow the Billy Graham rule. Follow the Billy Graham rule.
Man.
Live above reproach. You don't have to worry about this stuff.
Absolutely. You don't do drugs. Don't drink. Don't do all that.
Don't cheat on your wife.
Girlfriend. Don't cheat on your wife. And he wasn't cheating, I don't think. I think he was divorced when all this was happening. From what I heard, but I think it was a cougar was involved in the whole thing. Someone who was a big fan.
No cougar hunting in the state of Colorado.
No cougar hunting. That's right. A challenge to Tennessee's ban on gender-affirming treatment for transgender minors will be heard by the Supreme Court today. The case before the conservative majority court seeks to resolve the question of whether the ban constitutes a violation of the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. Sources have told CNN that Iranian hackers accessed at least some of Kash Patel's communications. Patel is DJT's pick, of course, to head up the FBI. Members of Trump's inner circle have been targeted by foreign hackers in recent months, including Todd Blanche, Trump's pick to be the Deputy Attorney General. Jordan Kastrinsky, Colorado-Israel Chamber of Commerce, member of the IDF, in studio with Jeff and Billy this morning. He appreciates any support that Israel receives after October 7th.
In Israel, it kind of sometimes feels that when, the media is pushing out all this, all these images of the protesters and stuff, you feel very isolated in Israel because you feel like you're kind of between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, you have an enemy that wants to eat your guts and wants to literally destroy you. And on the other side, you have people who somehow buy into this groupthink death cult that's going on, and it can feel very isolating.
The jury in the Daniel Penny case continues deliberations today. The jury got the case Tuesday and asked the judge to reread some of their legal instructions. Former Marine Penny is accused of using a fatal chokehold to subdue an out-of-control homeless man who was threatening passengers' lives on a New York City subway train last year. In Chicago, citizens continue to go after Mayor Brandon Johnson after illegal immigration has destroyed their neighborhoods.
Trump Tom Holman, make an example out this Negro right here first. Please come here first, because you know what? We're going to help you. We want a forensic.
Ma'am, I would ask that you
keep
your, hold on a second. Stop her time.
You told Trump you ain't going to blink? Well, we ain't either. You ain't above the law. And where you going to run to when Trump pulls that Trump card out on you?
There's a 10-year prison sentence when you want to stand up here for those illegals.
You all.
Chicago flipping red, that group, and they are not playing around at all. The Nuggets beat the Warriors last night, 119-115 in NBA Cup group play, meaning the NBA regular season sucks and meaningless, so they have to trick it out and make it meaningful. Nikola Jokic, 38
You know what they're doing?
points.
You know what they're doing, Blake?
What are they doing? Other than making the courts ugly.
Yeah, what they're trying to steal idea from international soccer.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
This is all soccer.
Yeah, and what it is, and here's the deal: is right now, and it's soccer has created some amazing tournaments that go on during the season. The largest of which is the United Champions League. Basically, they take the champions of all different leagues and then put them into a giant tournament that happens during the season. And guess what? They make giant piles of money.
Yeah,
huge,
they make tons of money.
piles
You're
of
right.
money. And U.S. sports have been trying to figure out for years how to create the same kind of a tournament situation that they have in other leagues. They're even domestic cups. You have the FA Cup that plays in Europe. Yeah, and in England, the FA Cup. And what they do is you get all of the soccer teams are entered into a giant tournament that's played during the middle of the week because the other games take place on the weekend. And then you get these really, really lower level teams playing these top level premier teams, or or level 1 or level 2. And it's a great boon for the fans. They get to see the kids they like, and the kids get to see the stars they like. But here's the thing: is the NBA is effing it up because they're having the NBA teams play the other NBA teams. In order for it to work, you would have to get CBA teams. You would have to get amateur teams. You would have to get all the other teams. That's the structure. That's how this works. They've created a completely bogus fake tournament where they just play each other. That is stupid. Yes, it is a phenomenally stupid idea. I can't believe that all those people that have all that money sat around and looked at the example they have in European soccer and went, how can we screw this up? But they managed to do it.
I can, believe me.
Hey,
soccer guy, tell me what the hell's a friendly? What is
that? A friendly is a game that happens between two international teams, but there's nothing on the line. It's basically a warm-up.
It's a scrimmage.
Yeah, it's a scrimmage. It is an international scrimmage, and it's used by the teams, one, to kind of work out kinks in the system and to look at different lineups and to get kids that are younger some more exposure. But most importantly, it is used to sell tickets to make the money. That's the number one reason you have lots of friendlies, because they could scrimmage behind the scenes. They don't have to sell tickets, but they sell tickets because they can make the money. That's the reason we have friendlies. Yeah, but they're scrimmages.
Soda.
Yeah, they're nothing more than scrimmages.
Yep, there you go. Well, that's interesting. Well, I wonder if it'll work for the NBA. We shall see. I think it's bogus. I'm right there with you. 25 in Castle Pines, 27 in Arvada, 29 in Denver. Jeff and Billy, continue.
Look, this mission that we have, it takes hard work.
Boy, you got that right. It's hump day. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Fair weather will dominate the forecast for Denver and the Front Range and all of Colorado from today through midday Sunday. Mostly sunny to partly sunny and dry. Mid to upper 50s today, mid to upper 20s tonight. Low to mid 50s for highs for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday's highs mid to upper 50s. Same for Sunday. Sunday increasingly cloudy. Late Sunday night and Monday, a chance of snow showers, and early next week will be colder. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, the Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic has put out an after-action review, lessons learned, and the path forward. This has always bugged me that we haven't had a national consensus on the origins as well as the response, talked about this, figured it out, because you had some really bad decisions made, and some people just kept right on in their political career. Just no changes whatsoever. I did see, though, that DJT was going to appoint this guy that was arresting pastors for hosting church services during the lockdown. There was a sheriff that was arresting pastors during the lockdown, and somehow Donald Trump thought he might be a good pick for the head of the DEA. That guy's now out.
Yeah, he bowed out.
After everybody was like, wait, what? That guy? Really? He was some sheriff out of Tennessee or something like that.
And again, the idea of sheriff to DEA, that's interesting. That's an interesting jump as far as making that jump.
I just think if you're arresting pastors or Christians that wanted to meet, that's disqualifying. But all right, so here's what the Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic found. Here are the top line issues. Now, they have two things. They have the bipartisan agreement, and then they have some other things that maybe were a little bit more partisan. But bipartisan agreement. The possibility that COVID-19 emerged because of a laboratory or research-related accident is not a conspiracy theory, they write. Also, Echo Health Alliance Incorporated and Dr. Peter Daszak will never again receive U.S. taxpayer dollars. Scientific messaging must be clear and concise, backed by evidentiary support, and come from trusted messengers, such as frontline doctors treating patients. Public health officials must work to regain America's trust. Americans want to be educated, not indoctrinated. Former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo participated in medical malpractice and publicly covered up the total number of nursing home fatalities in New York. In addition to those bipartisan things that I just mentioned, they write the Select Subcommittee developed extensive findings, some of which include the U.S. National Institute of Health funded gain of research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. The Chinese government, agencies within the U.S. government, and some members of the international scientific community sought to cover up facts concerning the origins of the pandemic. Operation Warp Speed was a tremendous success and a model to build upon in the future. The vaccines, which are now probably better characterized as therapeutics, undoubtedly saved millions of lives by diminishing likelihood of the severe disease and death. Number 4, rampant fraud, waste, and abuse plagued the COVID-19 pandemic response. 5, pandemic-era school closures will have enduring impact on generations of America's children, and these closures were enabled by groups meant to serve those children. 6, the Constitution cannot be suspended in times of crisis, and restrictions on freedoms sow distrust in public health. And number 7, the prescription can't be worse than the disease, such as strict and overly broad lockdowns that led to predictable anguish and avoidable consequences. So, Bill, in light of this report, are you ready to accept that COVID came from a lab in Wuhan, China?
I disagree with your use of the word accept, because I don't see them backing up their claims inside of the report. I took a look at it. I went through it, and they are missing some information. They come to some wrong conclusions, and they make some untoward assumptions about things. I get the feeling that this subcommittee had a conclusion in mind before they started working towards it, and in part because they lean on the conclusions of both the Energy Department and the FBI and their conclusions, and that's silly to do in this sort of a situation. Doesn't mean anything.
They point out that the biological characteristics of COVID-19 are not found in nature, and that the data showed all COVID-19 cases stemming from a single introduction to humans.
Yeah, except they don't except here's the thing is they stopped looking into scientific research a number of years ago. That was a theory that came out in the first 12 to 18 months, I believe, of COVID. And there's new research that they have ignored, research that came out last year, that the fissure that they are talking about inside the DNA was found in wild COVID viruses that exist in bats and a few other animals. So the thing that they point to, that they said, see this thing in the DNA sequence that shows us that it was manipulated, they found it in nature. No, it wasn't manipulated. The trigger that they're talking about, that's been refuted. And the issue is that was last year. And this is the issue that I've got with the subcommittee. Why did you stop looking? You were supposed to be doing research. You were supposed to be continuing to examine the origins, yet you leave the most recent research on the table and completely ignore it. Yeah, they found that exact fissure inside of existing COVID viruses in the wild.
It seems to me that folks are continuing to grasp at straws. This is Fox News. The report also noted that China's foremost SARS research lab is in Wuhan, which has a history of conducting gain-of-function research at inadequate biosafety levels, and that the researchers at the lab were sick with COVID-like virus in the fall of 2019, months before COVID-19 was discovered at a wet market. So why is it like, it seems like you guys are grasping at straws to try to argue that this didn't come from the Wuhan Institute of Virology that was doing this exact type of research. Like, why is it so hard to accept that?
Here's the thing is, you just a minute ago outlined in that report that Americans want to be educated, not indoctrinated.
Yeah, right.
Yet when I bring new information to the table, you ask me why it's so hard to accept the information.
Yeah, because it seems like a conspiracy theory.
Well, hang on a sec. A conspiracy theory. So the scientists went out and did the research and found the marker that is cited in this report exists in nature, that it is not an indicator of it being manipulated inside of a lab, that is an incorrect conclusion. And that is new scientific research. And that happened last year. I think it came out in March of last year. I could be off on the timeline a little bit, but it was earlier in 2023. And that's the issue is we have in the report, Americans want to be educated. Here's new information that refutes the information that is sitting in here. And yet you tell me I'm the one that's not accepting it.
Yeah, because it seems like the argument coming from this new research is that, it's possible.
No, they
this
found
thing
it. Not possible.
Could be out in nature.
Not possible. They found it.
While ignoring the fact that you have a gain-of-function U.S.-funded viral research lab at the center of where this pandemic started.
The thing is, this harkens back to things that happened as far as HIV in the 80s. In the early outbreak of HIV, everybody pointed to oral polio vaccines as being the trigger point. And that was supposed to be the thing that caused it. And that was incorrect. And that's what we have here is we have people that are latching on to something that does exist. Yes, there are some bad protocols inside of that lab, but the larger body of research shows that it was probably naturally generated. And I'm not saying 110% because of science. Science very rarely comes to absolutes. And a large body of the evidence right now shows a natural genesis of this virus, not tied to that Wuhan lab. And there are some things involved in where the clusters of the cases are. Large
body? I thought you said it was one study.
No. There's a large body of evidence that together, there's one study out there that shows that one thing about the fissure that has shown it. But the thing about the fissure, there was one study that did that as well. I'm saying that has been refuted, but there are large geospatial analyses that have happened. There are large phylogenetic studies that have happened that show that it is most likely a natural origin. And and I can walk through those things as far as why. And they refute a large portion of what they come to in the conclusions inside of this subcommittee. But the other thing that's interesting is, again, we go back to, we lean on the Energy Department, and the Energy Department said low confidence, and low confidence means they think it's mostly BS. And then the FBI says moderate confidence, and moderate confidence inside of government speak means at best 50-50, that they don't know, that it could be a flip of the coin. And that does seem reasonable. But however, it's, the FBI that just yesterday was the deep state and had to be rooted out and cleaned by Kash Patel is now leaned on by the subcommittee as being the truth tellers. And they have to be the lodestone of what's going on, because right early in the study, they cite those two reports from the government, one of which actually means it's complete BS. And the other one says, we're not sure.
Here's their own lines from this report. Key evidence that would be expected if the virus had emerged from the wildlife trade is still missing. In previous outbreaks, such as SARS in 2002 and MERS in 2012, infected animals were found. The earliest cases occurred in people exposed to live animals, and ancestral variants of the virus found in animals were discovered. But none of this evidence has been discovered for COVID-19.
Actually, yes, it has. They just don't have the most recent research. There's geospatial analysis reports that have 155 early COVID-19 cases that come from the wet market in and around there in December of 2019. There's also phylogenetic studies that map nucleotide changes, and that has to do with when viruses jump from one creature to another in the wild. And those nucleotide changes happen only in the wild. They don't happen inside of a lab. And they've seen this nucleotide change inside of COVID-19. Yes, it is most likely a natural origin.
To me, that seems like the conspiracy theory. The wet market argument seems like a conspiracy theory.
Why?
When you have a lab that's in the same town.
But why? We have seen contemporaneously, we have seen bird flu go through zoonotic transformation. It's gone from birds into sheep, into pigs, into cattle.
This report says they don't have
humans.
evidence of that.
But they have. Yes, they do. They have it. They're just not looking at it. There are numerous phylogenetic studies that show the transfer from one animal to another and show the evolution of the virus. Yes. And in fact, they've even gone back and, God, I got to remember what the animal is. Originally, there were a couple of different animals, but they now have gone back to a separate animal that is in the wet market that is genetically close to some of the other animals that showed up early on as far as carrying the COVID-19 virus. And I forget what one it is. They pointed to now, but again,
you don't understand. You don't understand how this sounds as a conspiracy theorist. You're like, there's this animal. I don't know which animal it is.
No, I just can't remember it.
Potential animal.
I'm sorry, I can't remember what it is.
That could possibly have spread this. Meanwhile, you have a virus research lab doing gain of function research in the same town that has noted security lapses and problems with how it treated these viruses, and yet we're digging through some potential animal somewhere with the possible bio connection to humans.
But
that just seems to me like the conspiracy theory.
I know, but this is the problem that we have with earlier on talking about Americans being educated, because that's how scientific research works. That's exactly how scientific research works. You don't turn around and say, well, I see this thing, so that's going to be my assumption. You go out and you do the research and you look, and the scientists...
And I'm giving you a 520-page report on it.
Yeah,
that's being ignored.
No, that ignores the research. And I'm bringing the research to the table. There's research that happened last year that refutes the one thing they have in that report that says, see, this is the thing that we can point to show that it was made in the lab. The one thing they have is incorrect. Everything else is an assumption or conjecture. And again, I'm not saying it isn't possible that it came from a lab. I'm just saying that on the scientific research and the preponderance of the evidence leans towards wild. I'm not saying it's 100% sure, but it leans toward wild.
The exact
genesis.
line from this subcommittee report: the weight of the evidence increasingly supports the lab leak hypothesis.
Yes. And the weight of the evidence they're using is the Energy Department saying it's a bunch of BS, the FBI not knowing 50-50.
They have a full fact sheet listed here.
I know, but in a large portion, I'm pointing you. The one fact that they have there saying that here, this little thing here shows that it was created in a lab is incorrect. They've got wrong facts. And again, here's the idea: we talk all the time about the incompetence of the government, but here, they're the truth tellers. Here, they're absolutely right. That's the issue.
Because the alternative is some animal that we don't know, haven't been able to find.
If you want the name of the animal, I'll go and I'll look and I'll see if we can find it this morning. It's not that no one knows it. It's just that I don't remember what it is when I was reading it last time. I'm sorry. That is not a failure of the entire scientific community. That's not their failure. That is a failure on my memory And I'm happy to own that failure of my memory on this. But the preponderance of the evidence still shows wild genesis of this. And I'm sorry that the people in Congress got this wrong, but they're wrong on this. They don't have the research. And the research that is out there refutes what they are saying over and over and over again.
I disagree. I think they actually put together quite an impressive report, and we'll not only get to this in the origins of COVID, but then how was some of the money spent? How were those lockdowns determined? Spaces, 6 feet, social distancing, wear a mask, all that stuff in the special subcommittee report on the coronavirus. But while we may disagree, Bill, on COVID and some of this other stuff, we do agree that there is a good organization out there that does actually take care of people.
Yeah, there is one that I want to talk about. They had a wonderful open house last night. I appreciate it. I heard from them that a number of you showed up and said hello to the wonderful team over at Balance Wellspace. I appreciate you doing that, and I hope you enjoyed your evening with them with wine, cheese, crackers, and getting to know the team. Balance Wellspace is a group that has changed my life, that they function with integrative medicine. They're brand new here to Denver. They've got new offices in Lowry, right across from Hangar 2. Integrative medicine means that you get a whole bunch of different care under one roof. Chiropractic care, neuropathic care, physical rehabilitation, wave therapy, regenerative care, trigger point injections, plus a whole lot of other cutting-edge sci-fi level modalities that really have to be seen to believe. The cool thing is they're all non-invasive. They're not cutting you open. They're not stitching you back together. They're not doing any of that. This is all using your body to heal itself and their special machines. They've helped me with my back and no longer have the tingling and the sciatica that I had constantly, almost on a daily basis. That doesn't exist anymore. I'm regenerating the meniscus in my left knee as we are talking. When that big snowstorm hit a couple of weeks ago, I'm out there shoveling my butt off. And it is the handle of my shovel that is creaking and groaning, not my back. That is incredible. I want you to talk to the team at Balance Wellspace that has made such a difference in my life because I know they can make a difference in yours. They will do a personal pain evaluation. You then will set goals with them, and then they go to work. The cool thing is every couple of weeks, they come back and check in on you, they reevaluate you, and they discuss your care. Your current medical team, I'm sure they're doing a good job for you, but do they ever talk about you? Does one doctor ever talk to the other doctor's office, to make sure they're all rowing in the same direction together? That's how you can get healthy. This is a wonderful option, and they can reduce your pain and get you back to doing what you love doing. But you've got to take the first step and contact the team at Balance Wellspace. BalanceWellspace.com, BalanceWellspace.com. I want them to make the same change in your life they've already made in mine. And when you reach out to them, tell me you heard about them here on the Jeff and Bill Show, because it sure does help us out as well. And thanks in advance.
All right, lots of text messages, and we'll get to Joe here in just a second. By the way, phone lines are open, 303-696-1971. Suzanne saying the pangolin? Is that the animal?
No, that was the one they first thought about, was the pangolin, but there's a different one right now. But I'll go back and I'll research. I'll see if I can find it during this. But again, and the issue is this, though, but science changes. And this is the problem that we have with the American experience, is that they view that science cannot change ever, that it is immutable. There are certain things that are truisms in science, but science has changed and evolved all the time. Look at quantum physics. Changes and evolves all the time as far as what we look at. When we were decades and decades ago, we had no idea of the spectrum of visible light. We now have an idea of the spectrum of visible light. All of those things happen.
I'm sitting here going, all right, the lab leak conspiracy was first labeled as a conspiracy. You were a nut. You had your posts brought down, all that stuff. If you thought it came from the actual virus research lab where this pandemic broke out from, now there's a lot of evidence to it.
No,
we're still labeled conspiracy theorists while people believe some unknown animal that we have no evidence linked to is somehow the science. And I don't understand the mental block that takes place there, where people are so desperate to believe that this came from an animal when there's plenty of evidence that it came from the lab.
There isn't.
Yeah, there's a whole report from Congress on it.
No, and I just told you where they were wrong. Yes, they're wrong. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
They're wrong. I'm sorry.
I know, it's hard to argue. We'll continue this. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Ohio in Dallas, and here are your top stories. Residents of Chicago are taking aim at Mayor Brandon Johnson over his decision to spend half
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. The subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic has put out a report. And of course, there's lots of debate over it. Republicans going, this thing very likely came from a lab in Wuhan. Democrats going, well, we don't know. But they put out in their counter report the idea that COVID came from the lab cannot and should not be dismissed out of hand. So what do you think? Let's go to the phone lines. Joe Arvada. Good morning, Joe. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Hi, Jeff, Billy. Billy,
Morning. Yeah.
This is why liberals lost in this election. This is a perfect example. See, Occam's razor is so simple here. You look at the most simplest explanation. This is why we knew it came from a lab years ago, maybe months after War Room announced that it came from a Chinese lab. Why? Because all of the obvious common sense answers pointed to it. One, let's see, like Jon Stewart gave you years ago now. It's been years. Let's see, there's a Hershey's chocolate factory. A Hershey's chocolate bar is found within a mile of the factory. Where did it come from? Aliens? No. Maybe it was animals that created it. No. It came from the Hershey's chocolate factory.
What if it's not the same chocolate?
It was so common sense.
What if it's not the same chocolate? Joe, what if it's not the same chocolate?
No. Before you just chop me off and hang up on me, let's look at some basic facts. All of the people involved in the COVID were paid by what? The U.S. government and pharmaceutical companies to manufacture vaccines on a created virus because they wanted to create vaccines that might prevent weaponized viruses that were coming from foreign actors like China. So they went ahead and made these viruses like Peter Daszak did or helped do. And yes, Dr. Fauci, they invented them so that they could create vaccines to prevent other foreign actors from getting ahead of us. So we had a vaccine. It was already determined by other people that this was being done years before COVID, including a book by Stephen. The name of the book is Terminated, and it proposed that vaccines would be invented, and then the viruses that corresponded to them would be released so that they could make lots of money. This was done years before 2016. Stephen, I'm blocking his name. He's a Christian scientist, but you can look up the book, Terminated. My point is that the obvious answer was these people were all employed to create vaccines for viruses that they created. What do you not understand?
Okay, my turn now.
Go.
I'm just checking. Okay, cool. Let's refer back to your original starting point where you talk about Occam's razor and you talk about the simplest explanation. So your simple explanation is there is an international conspiracy of scientists and companies that are creating vaccines, and then they're going to go and create the viruses that correspond to those vaccines, and then they're going to release it on people so that they can make all the money. That is your simplest explanation, despite the fact that we Joe, that's where you started. I let you speak. You're going to listen to me now. That's where you started. That was your Occam's razor. There was your, and I'm listening to you, and I listened to the entire example and the entire explanation you gave. And your simplest explanation involves an international geopolitical conspiracy that would have to involve governments, government actors, and pharmaceutical companies, and whole bunches of other stuff. That's the simplest explanation that you have.
Well, what do you think?
Yet we have, Joe, examples all the time inside of nature of zoonotic transformation, of viruses jumping from animal to animal to animal. And that happens. And so if we're talking about the simplest explanation, the one that we see all the time, it would be the wild generation one, not the weird, multifaceted conspiracy theory that you had to invent in order to make sure that you were right. Occam's razor.
Here's the thing, Billy. COVID vaccine was invented before COVID was released. That's something that you can't explain without knowing that they knew ahead of time.
Then why didn't Donald Trump release it immediately when we had the first case in Seattle? Why didn't he come out and release it right away? Why didn't he? Why didn't he, Joe?
The actors that you talk about, like Dr. Fauci, they were telling President Trump, "We're the experts. Hey, we think we can develop a vaccine." We already have one. Oh, wait, we can develop a vaccine that can solve the problem so fast. We'll call it warp speed. Yes, we got it.
So again, your Occam's razor is that there's a conspiracy to create the vaccine beforehand and then release the virus later on. That's your simplest.
Was the lab there?
That is your simplest explanation for research.
Billy.
I answered.
Research?
Yes,
what was
I answered
the
your
research
question.
For?
I answered your
what
question.
What was the research
they were
for,
they were researching some COVID viruses and other things, and that's fine. But again,
that's so funny.
Yeah. Are you going to deal with the idea of zoonotic transformation at all? Are you going to deal with the idea that...
we have hundreds of labs to just research viruses, but what about the weaponization of viruses? We don't have research on that?
Yes, but your point is...
Okay. Well, let's see. The COVID virus was found within, a mile or two of a COVID research lab on viruses that would be weaponized. Wow, that's amazing. It's like finding the Hershey's chocolate bar next to the Hershey's.
Yeah, except Joe, the chocolate is not the chocolate's not the same. That's the fallacy in your example. The chocolate that they found outside of the lab is not the same chocolate that is created inside of the lab. And they can see that through the DNA sequencing. That's the problem. If it was the chocolate bar that came from the lab, the DNA sequence would match. And it doesn't. But
Jason,
again, Occam's razor.
Jason points out it might have been Willy Wonka's Oompa Loompas that created it. We can combine it all.
Got to use that in the gobstopper.
All right.
Yes.
Look, for many of us, it's happening. Your hair's thinning, your crown's disappearing. Maybe hair loss has you feeling your identity's lost altogether. Well, I've got good news for you. It's an incredible yet simple one-day treatment that starts growing your own natural hair the very next day. And it's guaranteed to grow for life. It's the Advanced FUE from Advanced Hair. We've all seen the pills and lotions that come with monthly subscriptions. They help retain what you have, but what if what you want is your own natural hair permanently in specific areas? From Advanced Hair state-of-the-art facilities to world-class Dr. Tanya Pauls, it's not maybe your hair will regrow. It's guaranteed that your new hair will grow. You decide how much, how thick, and where. It's why Advanced Hair is the winner of Westward's Best of Denver. For your free consultation, $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Give them a call at 720-459-HAIR, 720-459-HAIR, or advancedhair.com. Advancedhair.com. We'll continue with your calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking the Special Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Report that came out yesterday. Republicans saying that from their perspective, it likely came from a lab. Democrats going, well, maybe we're going to hold on to both, but you can't dismiss the lab theory. They say that's a change, because I remember there was a time when you were a wild conspiracy theorist and you had your posts blocked and taken down when you considered it might have come from the lab. Let's go to the phone lines. Roxanne, good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Hello, good morning. Yeah, I'm calling all the way from Louisiana.
Oh, fantastic.
I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to ask a question, as I have questions, and I guess it would just boil down to, does anyone here have a concrete belief that they know that it came from an animal or it came from a lab, and they can not, there's no leeway on that? I mean, what is the name of your other commentator there? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's Jeff or Bill. Which one? Depends on who you're mad at during
Okay,
the day.
I was speaking to Bill. You're Jeff,
yeah,
correct?
Me. Yeah. No, I'm Bill. I'm the one you're upset
Okay.
with. Here's the thing.
Okay, Bill, do you not have any suspicions or questions whatsoever?
Oh yeah, I outlined that earlier, that I'm not 100% sure that it came from a wild origin. I'm always
A
open to
panda
that.
dog?
And no, not pangolin. It's I believe it's the
Panda dog. Panda dog.
No, I believe you're referring to the Asian raccoon. Yeah, that's most likely the source at this point, from what the research says. Here's the thing is, I try to follow the science, and science does change. And that's one of the criticisms I've had of our government during the early part of the COVID virus and continuing, is they were really, really bad at coming out and explaining to everybody that these rules and things were going to change, and that
totally correct.
Yeah, and that our knowledge was
But,
going to change.
Has there been any disagreement that it can simply have been extracted from the wild?
There have been. And so there are some theories inside the wild, and there's some theories as far as the lab leak. And I do think the lab leak does have some merit. But on balance, what I see right now is that more of the evidence supports a wild genesis of COVID-19 rather than the lab leak, because a lot of the things that have been said about the lab leak have been refuted by some of the more recent research into COVID-19.
Can any of these people that have made these vaccines, whether it's Johnson & Johnson or the one dude that made the mRNA and then he
Actually, it was
went
a woman.
against it?
Actually, it was a woman. He's taking credit for things he didn't do, but a woman actually did the mRNA vaccine. Did most of
I
the
don't
heavy
know
lifting.
if he came out that way or if he just he did the massive majority of the making it accessible to the public.
No, he had
But
the
it's
idea
nothing
behind
new.
it, but the research was done by a woman.
But there's so many versions of coronavirus prior to 2019.
Yes.
Many, many different versions.
Yes.
And why would it not be that all these people that make the vaccine cannot agree that the spike itself was the problem with this virus? There's never been an arrangement and mechanisms of the spike on the virus itself. It wasn't possible in nature for that spike to exist.
Roxanne, that's the reference. I've got to let you go here. That's the research I was referring to. Hang on, and I'll tell you more in a second. I'm going to talk to you off air. But we
You're
got to go in a
listening
second.
to the Jeff and Bill Show.
KNUS.
It is 9 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, broadcasting all the way to Louisiana. Special tip of the hat to Roxanne. Thank you for calling in. Great conversation.
She's my new friend.
Billy was telling me he really liked that conversation.
Yeah, and she's not saying, "Oh my gosh, Billy, you're wonderful. You're right." She's pushing back at me. She's challenging certain things, and she's asking really, really good, hard questions. Oh, she's my new friend. I like Roxanne. I hope she calls more.
And while we were discussing the origins of COVID, what matters most to me was what actually affected the people, the lockdowns, the businesses, the choosing some businesses to be critical and others not to be, the pressure put on churches, what we did to kids, kicking moms off of airplanes because their 2-year-old wasn't comfortable putting a mask on. All of that crap.
Yes. And here's the thing
that we forced upon the American people is what actually drives me bonkers about the COVID stuff.
And here's the thing is, all the disagreement that we had last hour evaporates with your point right there. Yes. How we managed the virus was crap. How we went about our approaches towards social distancing, what we were told about masks and how we used them, how we dealt with the kids in classrooms and inside of schools was complete and total crap. And where I lay a lot of the problems inside the school system is, and this is, I want our listeners to understand what I'm going to say here, because I have members of my family that are part of the Colorado Teachers Union, and the union was the major impediment to getting kids back in class. And their reasoning for it was wrong. I understand the idea of these little germ factories being around teachers, and because they're adults and the kids can give the virus to the adults, the danger that exists there. However, what we've seen from vaccination is that would more likely than not keep you totally safe. Not saying you won't get it, but the idea is when you do get it, you didn't get as sick. When after the vaccine was rolled out, the vast majority of people that were dying in the hospitals were unvaccinated. The vaccinated people went to the hospitals and came out the other side just fine in most cases. So there were treatments. The other thing is we can point to countries like, and this is what I always come back to, Taiwan and Singapore. They are right close to China. They should have been devastated, but because of their procedures, they were able to make it almost non-existent. I believe that in the course of the virus, Singapore lost less than 50 people total in the entire freaking country. They only lost 50 because of how they did it. Yes, they did social distancing. Yes, they did masks. Yes, they did partial lockdowns, but guess what they didn't do? Close the schools. They didn't close the schools because they were really good at contact tracing, something that we functionally didn't do, didn't look at, didn't try to execute, didn't even consider until we were months down the road. And if you look at the countries that are closest to the outbreak in China, and you look at the ones that handled it well, the number one thing they did is contact trace, and they nailed it. There was one case in Singapore where they were able to trace an outbreak to a trash can. That's how good they were. We ignored that. So you're right. The way in which we handled it, everything we went to, what businesses closed, what businesses opened, who was taking off planes, was crap. You're right. We messed up the response phenomenally. You're right, my friend.
Well, phone lines are open, 303-696-1971. How do you feel about what happened? Do you think that people were held accountable on all those decisions that Bill and I were just agreeing on, where, picking and choosing certain businesses, pressure on churches not to open, kicking moms off of planes with toddlers, all that stuff? I mean, even Kyle Clark, and he had a video saying we need to shame people into getting vaccines more. All of that stuff. Have you ever heard an apology on that? I mean, it was the amount of pressure, and I know this specifically because, and I'm not trying to downplay COVID because I had COVID. It was a nasty thing. It was one of the worst colds I ever had. It put me out for 2 weeks. Terrible. Not trying to downplay on it, but we also watched our kids get it, and it was the most mild cold that our kids had the entire year. It resulted in a runny nose for our kids. So to keep them out of schools, to try to mandate vaccines on kids, all that stuff, absolutely crazy. And here's my real question. Have we learned? What have we learned? And did we keep our politicians accountable for the mistakes they made during COVID-19? I'm not sure we've ever actually had that reckoning. Give me a call.
No,
Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson, Steffan Tubbs is going to join us, public affairs specialist for the DEA Rocky Mountain Division, talking all about the fentanyl seizure that they had recently. Not going to want to miss it, but let's check in on news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, guys. Glad Steph is coming in this morning. That'll be awesome. 34 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 56 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
I was paying attention to my phone, I was looking at my phone. Then I hear the shots, like 3 shots, bum, bum, bum. And I was looking, then I see the guy holding a gun.
An investigation is underway after United Healthcare's CEO was fatally shot outside a New York City hotel this morning. Reports say 50-year-old Brian Thompson, who heads United Healthcare's insurance division, was in the city for a conference at the Hilton Midtown when he was shot in the chest in front of the hotel. Thompson was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, but later died. The investigation underway. The Wall Street Journal says DJT may be considering a new pick for Secretary of Defense, including Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. This comes as Pete Hegseth is embroiled in multiple misconduct allegations, but Hegseth just said this morning he's not withdrawing his name.
I spoke to the president-elect this morning. He said, keep going, keep fighting. Find your way. Why would I back down? I've always been a fighter. I'm here for the more fighters. It's personal passion for me.
If you didn't hear it, he said that DJT said, keep fighting and keep going. And why would I back down? That's what he said in that interview as he was walking. Incoming Senate Republicans are focused on border security. In a closed-door meeting Tuesday, incoming Majority Leader John Thune of South Dakota laid out a two-step process to pass President-elect Trump's agenda without needing help from Democrats. It's getting embarrassing now. Scott Jennings has to educate the lefties on CNN every night, this time on deportation.
Like what? Like deport illegal immigrants. That is actually not a function of the military.
The military can absolutely be used to work with local officials to provide military resources, but working with other parts of the federal government and local officials. We already send the National Guard to the border.
Not against the will of the local officials or the will of the state government. We have a federalist government here.
The military is not supposed to take up arms against American citizens.
They're
Period.
not. You keep saying that. This is about illegal immigration. You all keep saying American citizens.
Well, how do we know whether the people are illegal or not?
Well, when we
know after they're shot.
We have 1.6.
We know after they die.
We have 1.6 million people in this
I gotta stop it there. If you're legal, you have an identification. He said, how are you going to tell if they're illegal after they're shot? Well, you should have a legal identification.
Is that what they're running with now? The idea that somehow the military is going to be shooting?
Yeah, that's what this whole discussion was about. It went on for 4 or 5 minutes. I mean, literally, they think they're going in there, they're going to shoot them all. Well, yeah, if guns are pointed at them, yeah, they will be shot. And if you're a citizen, you have identification, correct? And then they continue.
You receive deportation orders from courts. They are here
No,
illegally.
it's always back to illegal immigration with people who support Donald Trump. It's always back to illegal immigration,
People
but that's not the only thing that we're talking about here. We're talking about the American people.
No, we're talking about illegals, and we're talking about the American people not wanting the illegals in here. Okay. All right. It's a record breaking year for fentanyl pill seizures in Colorado, but Agent Dave Olesky with the DEA says the latest numbers are nothing to celebrate as they're working to keep the deadly drug out of here.
While we've made some progress, we can say, in terms of overdose deaths have gone down year over year across the nation. Here we're seizing more, but it really doesn't matter if we continue still to lose so many lives each year. Carfentanil, it's a synthetic opioid, so it's highly addictive, it's potent, but it's also cheap for the cartels to utilize this drug and manufacture. And so the one thing that the cartels are motivated by is money, right? It's greed.
According to the agency, a record 2.7 million pills were seized in 24 with a month remaining in the year. The DEA also seized, as you just heard right there, more than 250,000 pills containing an animal tranquilizer, 100 times more potent than fentanyl, last month alone on the Western Slope. EPA advisor Brent Efron, how about this clown, in an undercover video admits that the EPA has an insurance policy against Trump, which is funneling billions of dollars to climate organizations. Love that. He says in this Project Veritas video that we're throwing gold bars off the Titanic. These dudes, they just love boasting and bragging about themselves to other dudes.
It was a insurance policy against Trump winning. So these are basically nonprofit institutions that will cover the entire country. They could have been a government agency, but because they aren't, they're safer from Republican systems than the You guys are saving the world, literally. I don't know if we are, but we're throwing gold bars up at Titanic. Yeah. Do what? We're throwing gold bars up at Titanic. That's all it's saving. I don't know if we're saving it, but we're getting the money out.
Blow up the EPA, blow them up. The latest college football playoff rankings have been released. Oregon finished the regular season as the top team in the nation after going 12-0. The Ducks are followed by Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, and Georgia. Ohio State slipped 4 spots and is now ranked 6th. Tennessee, SMU, Indiana, Boise State, Alabama, and Miami round out the rest of the top 12. CU finishes the regular season ranked 23rd. All right, 32 in Littleton, 30 in Boulder, 34 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue on Wednesday, and that means Steffan Tubbs is coming up.
So long. See you, sucker. Bon voyage. Arrivederci, later, loser. Goodbye. Good riddance. Peace out. Let the doorknob hit you where the good Lord split you. Don't come back around here no more. Hasta visa. Kick rocks and get the hell out.
I just have to remind you, don't you ever let anybody take your power from you.
Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
All right, let's get back to the phone lines. Frank Evergreen. Good morning, Frank. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. First, I can't wait to hear from Steffan. His time slot has never been the same since he left.
I agree.
The thing I called about was we're talking about COVID. And what Billy said was accurate about, as he usually is accurate about everything, about the Singapore and other countries like Sweden and various other countries that have almost no impact. The problem is we're at the assign blame phase of this project now, and it's time to assign blame where it belongs, and that's the lying, cheating, stealing, baby-killing Democrats. And people, I think I'm hopeful that people will start to recognize how much they lie, cheat, and steal, and kill babies. At some point, people got to wake up and realize it's the Democrats that did this to us, not the Republicans. And by the way, I'm independent. So,
when you say did this to us, are you talking about the introduction of COVID? Are you talking about the lockdowns, the whole
the lockdowns, the management of it, all that? was all Democrats. There were no Republicans involved in that. As a matter of fact, now even I still see people wearing masks around. I see guys driving a Tesla with nobody in a car and with a mask on. What the frick is that about?
It's weird, and I think part of the long-term consequences of this, or you have the distrust of the science community that's now taken hold.
Absolutely.
I mean, the next pandemic, the only way you're going to get people to abide by any type of government orders is if people are literally dropping dead in the streets because they're just not going to trust it. And so you have the lack of trust with the medical community. You have the long-term impact on kids.
Even my own doctor wouldn't be honest with me. I mean, he was cautious about being honest with me. I think it's a doctor I've had for 30 years. It was, they were all basically, Fauci is the kingpin, and, look into his records as far as how much money he made from COVID. Look at his restaurant he left open in San Francisco when everybody else was closing. It's just absurd. And people need to start recognizing Democrats lie, cheat, and steal and kill babies. That's all they do.
Frank, with the condemnation of the Democrats and the support of bill. So that's a unique call. Thanks,
that was
Frank.
different. Thanks, Frank. That was surprising. Yes, appreciate you, Frank.
Frank's line is open. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. All right, Rocky Mountain DEA breaks fentanyl seizure record for second straight year. Not a record you want to be breaking.
No.
But because they're so good at their job, they're out there getting these pills off the streets and saving lives. Joining us on the Jeff and Bill Show is Steffan Tubbs, Public Affairs Specialist with the DEA Rocky Mountain Division, and Dave Olesky, Assistant Special Agent in Charge. Gentlemen, well done on the seizures. I'm sorry you have to work so hard.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. And Bill, good morning. It was good to see Bill last week for the imaginary Thanksgiving Day parade. I figured, you could have at least made some kind of phone appearance, Jeff.
Oh, I don't even know where I was on last Wednesday.
Yeah.
I was
well, you weren't along the parade route.
No.
Yeah, you weren't along the parade route. We missed you.
My favorite, by the way, was the baton off twirling between Tina Peters and Jenna Griswold. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, that visual's fantastic.
Billy, aren't they still twirling somewhere? They're
yes,
down
they
by
are.
Pueblo now.
Yes, except they've upped the game. They've now lit the edge of the batons on fire because gotta get it to the people.
What a visual! What a visual. Well, listen, I'm going to go from I love you guys to my official role, but we're actually heading to an operation in Montana right now, so that's why we're on the phone. But I'll get it to Mr. Olesky in a moment. But this, as you mentioned, Jeff, is not a record that anybody wants to set. 2.7 million pills, still a month to go, and that breaks last year's 2.61 million pill season. That's just in Colorado. We're probably and most likely by next month, we'll have the numbers that indicate that the division, so our 4 states with DEA, Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, and Montana, will break last year's 3.4 million pill seizure. And, it's something that it's not to be celebrated. It goes to show you that the Mexican cartels are still pumping these pills into the state. Now,
part of the response to the idea that we're going to go after fentanyl is, well, it's one thing to go after cartels, but there's a huge demand for this in this country. What is behind that? True? Why are there so many people wanting to play around with such a nasty drug?
Yeah, and potentially, deadly, right? I mean, our new numbers, it's basically the flip of a coin with the amount of pills and, the potential, just 2 milligrams. We've talked about this before with you guys, that the amount of fentanyl that can fit on the tip of a pencil is the potential fatal dose to a first-time user. But it goes back to the addictive quality. The cartels know this. And, the biggest question that we get all the time, we got it a couple of times yesterday after the press release went out, is, we don't get it. How come the cartels want to kill their customer base? Well, they don't care, and it's all about greed. So with that, I'm going to give it to Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Dave Olesky, and I think he's going to actually give you a little teaser as well, guys. So here's Mr. Olesky.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Dave.
Good morning.
Yeah, I first have to say thank you to your previous caller, Frank, who was complimenting on missing Steffan because Steffan just almost drove off the 470. He was so ecstatic to have a compliment. But it's great to have Steffan as a partner here, and as he was rattling off just some of the facts, some of this records number we just passed in the last few days with 2.7 million pills seized in 2024. We're still a month to go. And if you look back, I was just chatting with our special agent in charge, Zach Pullen, moments ago, and we were reliving some of the moments just over the last few months that make up that 2.7 million. We had close to 600,000 fentanyl pills seized down in Colorado Springs recently. Recently, also a huge carfentanil seizure, which factors into those numbers out on the western slopes. And if you guys go back, it's talked about often with TDA and the Venezuelan gangs. We put out in early August, we were discussing how we had a multi-kilogram fentanyl seizure tied to TDA. And so, again, it's not something that we want to celebrate, but it also shows this combination of both organized crime. Typically, we're talking about the Sinaloa and Jalisco cartels, but there's also, many other DTOs, we call them drug trafficking organizations and gangs that are trafficking this poison into our communities. And if we're seizing that much, it also shows that there's still, these cartels continue to flood not only our nation, but the state of Colorado.
Talking to Dave Olesky, Assistant Special Agent in Charge with the Rocky Mountain DEA. Dave, President-elect Trump put out a statement saying that he's going to implement tariffs on Mexico and China specifically on this issue. He's tired of it. He wants to seems like he wants to take on these cartels. From your perspective, is that the right approach? Does Mexico and Canada need to up their game in order to stop fentanyls from coming into the United States?
What else I just in line with the change in administration is, every 4 to 8 years, right, we get a new president, a change in administration, and for the work of our men and women who are out there on the streets, of Aurora or Denver doing the work each and every day to take fentanyl off the street and go after these bad actors, the job's not going to change. But it is, I think, in order to change, the flow of fentanyl to our country, there's other aspects of this, the cartel topic, of the trafficking of drugs into our nation that, it's an all hands on deck approach. So if that means, with the president-elect having different ideas on how to tackle this issue, we need those new ideas. It also means we also got to end up, continuing to do outreach, continuing to talk about this topic like we are. I've been on your show at least once before, some of the other folks on your station. We can't talk about it enough. In terms of this topic, I was just talking to some of our folks who work on the fentanyl overdose team in Denver yesterday, and they were saying that the medical examiner numbers for the city of Denver put it somewhere around 390 deaths as of November for the year. The investigative team has the number in the low 400s because so many toxicology reports are still pending. And that's 400 families this holiday season that are going to be without a loved one. And so, when you look at it in that perspective, we need different ideas. We need an all hands on deck approach from this. I was just saying yesterday, folks in the education community leaders, we need to keep talking about this because that's what it's going to take to turn the tide on this epidemic.
Dave Olesky, Special Agent in Charge for the Drug Enforcement Agency, joining Jeff and Bill live talking about millions and millions of fentanyl pills that have been seized here in Colorado. We have broken the record, 2.7 million, not a record that we want to break. Mr. Olesky, what I want to ask you is, how are these pills coming into Colorado? We know they come across the border, but what I'm looking for is, what is the transport mechanism that you are seeing? What are the arteries? Are they using our major roadways to bring them here? And then also, what organizations have you found are involved in the transportation and distribution of fentanyl here in Colorado, especially the Denver metro region?
No, absolutely. You guys know the two main arteries for commerce, just for the public at large, is the I-25, I-70 corridors. And so for us coming, doing our cases here, we see, these pills and other drugs like meth, cocaine, heroin coming from the west on I-70 or coming up from the south on I-25. And, there's no mystery. With one, if you can use your imagination on how they're getting here, they are probably doing that. Typically, though, whether it's tractor trailers or just your typical passenger cars, you got to remember, especially when it comes to fentanyl, 200-300 pills, just picture your Tylenol, bottle or your headache medicine in your house. That's how easy it is to transport these drugs and hide it. So the typical things we've seen over the decades has been, hidden compartments in vehicles. We do see time to time, just transport, let's say buses or things of that nature, folks getting on there to transport it. Also parcel packages is a huge way that we end up seeing, especially Steffan mentioned we're going up to Montana right now for an operation. And up there, it's typically you end up seeing packages being sent from, our southern states up to Montana. And so our U.S. Postal Service partners are a huge, benefit to us in doing those investigations.
Ooh, now, Dave Olesky, Special Agent in Charge, DEA, joining Jeff and Bill live. Now, is the Denver metro area a destination or a distribution hub right now for fentanyl? What are you guys finding?
No, it's both. Obviously, the population center makes it, where it's a consumer destination, it's distributed locally. But when you end up having those two corridors, one I-25 going all the way up to Wyoming, Montana, which our division also covers, but then I-70, which just continues out east. We have a great partnership with the Colorado State Patrol, who works with us to, go after these couriers as they're transiting our state. And so definitely when you look in that 2.7 million pills, that record number this year seized, a portion of that certainly was going to be going to other states, but a majority of that was going to be staying in here for, local distribution, retail distribution in the metro area. But again, those numbers don't only cover a city like Denver or Aurora that we talk about often. It's Colorado Springs, it's the Western Slopes, northern Colorado. And so there isn't any part of the state, sadly enough, that hasn't been impacted by this epidemic.
Special Agent in Charge, DEA, Dave Olesky, joining Jeff and Bill live. Also, Steffan Tubbs riding shotgun in the car. Actually, he's the one doing the driving right now. Dave's hanging out with us. And what I've got a question for you, Dave, is we are going to have the people from Step Denver in with us next week. They're coming in and going to be spending here, and they deal with addiction and getting people off the streets that are in the throes of addiction. We know that in the Denver metro area, addiction is a real serious problem. Steffan has done some great work looking into addiction here in the city. What I'm looking for is, what advice do you have, or can you help us understand how someone in our audience can turn and talk to their kids, someone in their family, maybe someone that's going through addiction? What's that message? How do you break through that cycle? It's so important to them to feed that demon. What messages can someone in our audience possibly share with a loved one about how they need to be careful and how dangerous those illicit drugs that they're looking for can actually end up in death? What messages have you found that resonate, that can really help stem the tide, even on an individual basis?
No, it's such a great point to bring up, and that you're having that person on to talk next week about substance abuse recovery. Because, we come on there, we're Drug Enforcement Administration, enforcement's in our name, but we're not going to arrest our way out of it, right? For decades and decades, right? People in our nation suffered from different substance abuse challenges. Doesn't matter what the drug of choice was in a particular era, going back, whether it was oxy pills or heroin or coke or meth or marijuana over the years. So it's important to have, the drug education component in this. And what I'll say is, our One Pill Can Kill campaign that's been going on for years. To all your listeners, you can go to our website, dea.gov, G-O-V, and go, and there's videos and there's links where you can go on there and, come up with techniques, or, there's videos on there on how to have these tough conversations, maybe with a teenager, one of your kids, or a family member or friend. Because as in our name says, one pill can kill, but I often say one conversation can save. And so don't just doubt that just having a small conversation of just a couple of minutes with a friend, family member can actually make a difference. As I said earlier, just in the city of Denver, we're going to have 400 families who lost someone this past year, going through the the Christmas New Year season for the first time without a family member. So what I'll say is I remember last year doing a town hall in Parker, and sadly a mom got up on stage and this debate was going back and forth with the audience and the panelists. And the mom said, "Hey, listen, you just don't want to be me. Have that tough conversation, with those that you love and are friends with," because, she would do anything to go back and have that conversation with her child. And so I can't stress that enough. And that's really the core of why we're on talking with you today. It's not about record numbers of seizures and look at the great cases. Certainly there's investigative successes, but we got to continue to push awareness and educate the public. And that's great. You're having someone in that arena on next week.
Dave Olesky, Assistant Special Agent in Charge, DEA Rocky Mountain Division, joining the Jeff and Bill show. The Rocky Mountain DEA breaking fentanyl seizure record for the second straight year. The men and women of the DEA doing God's work to try to save lives. Gentlemen, we really appreciate your time today. Good luck today. Keep up the great work.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. We'd love to hear from you. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. Man, it feels like they're just, in many ways, just taking teaspoons out of the ocean, doing their very best to stem this. What is going to turn this around? It's both a criminal enterprise. You have the cartels and illegal immigration, human trafficking, drug trafficking coming through the borders, people taking advantage of Americans. But at the same time, you have a massive population that wants these drugs. So you got to deal with that as well. You can't just, like he said, arrest your way out of this.
Yeah, it's that addiction services, and how do you possibly lean into that and service that with organizations? And the other part that's so difficult is, he talked about it early on, is there were questions yesterday about why are they bringing the fentanyl that kills their customers? The issue is in part profit. One, they know the addiction is going to continue, that they can always get more people addicted, and that's okay. But then the other part is profit, that even if I'm going to shed some of my users, if I can cut the fentanyl to a small portion into the drugs, I'm increasing my profit margin because the fentanyl is so much cheaper. So the problem that you have, and we didn't get into it too much with Dave, and we've done it before, is all sorts of home chemists. And I lean back on famous country star and rock and roll star Jelly Roll, who everybody saw just recently during Thanksgiving. You saw him perform on stage during a halftime show. He talked about the idea of when he was involved in his addiction, he was involved in drugs, that these are not scientists that are sitting there and balancing out the drugs they're getting. They're cutting them on a kitchen table or in a garage. And the amount of fentanyl from pill to pill is going to be different all the time because they don't care. It's just like when back in the 70s, someone would cut oregano or something else into your pot. It's just like people cutting things, sawdust, into certain types of cocaine. That happens. And so that's what they're doing, is it's that profit motive side. And that's why they're doing it, because they know all they need is one more person to get addicted. They can replace that dead body.
Yeah. It's a major issue. I'm very happy to have the men and women of the DEA working on this, and President Trump setting some tough standards on Mexico and Canada to up their game to take this on. You're no longer going to take advantage of the American people the way Mexico and Canada have, allowing this stuff to come into our country. They need to step up. Would love to hear from you. 303-696-1971. Want to talk to you about my friends at one of my absolute favorite restaurants, the Black Eyed Pea of Colorado. Locally owned and operated by Steve and Michelle. I love this restaurant. It's home-style cooking, worth going out for. With 8 locations, there's sure to be one near you. When's the last time you took your family to eat at the Black Eyed Pea? They've got daily specials. They've got senior discounts. My teenage kids love it. Great home cooking that even your kids will eat up. Be sure to check out their new menu items. The stuffed spuds, 8 different and delicious baked potatoes. Here's just a few. The chopped steak spud, the sweet pork spud, the meatloaf stuffed spud. That was my daughter's favorite. And the broccoli cheese stuffed spud. There's more. Everyone in your party is going to be sure to find a favorite. Make your dinner party, rehearsal dinner, wedding reception, or company event a success with Black Eyed Pea Catering. And no matter what the occasion, Black Eyed Pea gift cards are always great. Whether you purchase them for your spouse, birthday favors, or holiday presents, they have you covered. I love everything about this restaurant. I know you will as well. Keep it in Colorado and visit the Black Eyed Pea near you. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS. Whatever happened to piano and pop music? I don't get this as much. Wonderful
Gwen
instrument.
Stefani took him away. No, not Gwen.
No.
Who is the one that married the Coldplay
Which
guy?
one? Oh, Gwyneth Paltrow.
Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yeah, her and her weird things you should be inserting into orifices in your body. Stupid.
Candles that smell like
I know. Oh
inappropriate
my
things.
God, just weird. The thing is, okay, but just personal thing. When it started off and it was Chris Martin and Gwyneth Paltrow getting married, Chris Martin, lead singer of Coldplay, I thought, well, Chris is the odd one. No, not at all. No, I was totally wrong about that one. Gwyneth was the totally weird one. Yeah, totally weird. But again, they named their kid Apple. What the hell was that about, Sarah? Sorry, it's just stupid.
Well, great conversation with Steffan Tubbs. Man, he is the pro. Always good to have him back.
Oh, yeah. That was really
And
nice
he's
to hear
on
from him.
probably a small private plane up to Montana to deal with some drug issues up there.
Yeah, and just the idea of that we've already broken the record and we still have weeks to go in the year, and that it's just not a record you want to break. And I think it outlines how difficult this problem is, especially when Dave Olesky was talking to us about how easy it is to transport the fentanyl because it can be packed into tiny pills and it's very small.
You don't need the poppy seeds fields anymore either.
Yeah, it's not like you're bringing in bushels of marijuana, which is much more difficult to transport. This is very tiny and very easy to get through customs and to hide, and makes it very, very dangerous.
All right, another interesting story out there. Dozens of liquor stores shuttered after voters okay wine sales in grocery stores. Hundreds more expected to shut as well. This is from our friends over at the Denver Gazette. When Colorado voters were asked in 2022 to allow grocery stores to sell wine, lifting a 107-year restriction, the industry repeatedly and unsuccessfully tried to beat back legislatively for decades. Proponents billed it as a win for consumers, pocketbooks, and the leveling of the playing fields for alcohol sales statewide. With far less money in their campaign war chest against Proposition 125, independent liquor stores owners, they fought back with claims that their businesses would be ravaged by an already competitive market that ultimately favored the larger retailers. The days of the local family-owned liquor store would be numbered, they said, and their predictions were right.
Yeah, they are right. And this was something you knew that was coming. I personally wasn't 100% in favor of them being able to sell the full-strength beer, but I knew that 3.2 was just going to knock off stuff, so not that big of a deal.
You're against that?
I wasn't as enthusiastic about it. I'm like, because again, I see the competitive advantage that the small liquor stores had, and what I've seen growing up, always in my neighborhoods, and it could be different in your neighborhood and than our listeners' neighborhoods. But those liquor stores were always tied to a grocery store. They're always 2 or 3
right
doors
next door
away.
down. Yep.
And that was part of the reason for that. And personally, in my alcohol buying habits, I have seen a divergence to where there are absolutely sales that I have given to the grocery store rather than just go next door or 2 doors down to the liquor store because of the convenience. Because I'm already in the store, I'm already here, I'm going to have to check out. Why not just do it here? I do consciously make the decision at times to say, no, I'm not going to buy it here. I'm going to go to the liquor store to support them. But absolutely, they have lost money. And of course, it's going to be, the wine is going to be another step forward in that. And next, you're going to look for full strength spirits. And I have a real heart for those small business owners because I don't imagine that a lot of them are getting rich. We've seen, on those local neighborhood liquor stores, and they also have become a tremendous target for crime. And we've had numerous stories over the course of the year about liquor stores being broken into. There was a story a couple of months ago where one was broken into, I think, within 48 or 72 hours twice, where they came back and hit it. And it just gets simply ridiculous. And so these smaller business owners are struggling, and it's difficult because I want to support the small business owner, but
I get it.
Yeah, you can't.
I get it.
You can't compete with the giant grocery store.
And I'm not for using the power of government and regulations to protect certain businesses either.
Yeah,
we were able to put this into the law 107 years ago, so the grocery store can't sell wine or harder alcohol or anything like that. To me, that's the use of government and force to protect a business that the free market could improve. So while I understand the importance of small businesses and their small business owners, and frankly, I think there'll still be some role for liquor stores, maybe if they can survive, just because you don't want to go into a big grocery store, walk down 15 aisles to grab when you just want to grab some Coors Light or something. That maybe there's a benefit to it, but yeah, at the same time, using the power of government to protect those industries, I'm not a fan of. I am a fan, though, of Dr. Mike and Rocky Mountain Dental Group.
Oh, he's awesome.
Look, I've had a lot of work done with my teeth. Believe me, finding a good dentist makes all the difference. And Dr. Mike is top shelf. Huh? See how he did that? Top shelf at Rocky Mountain Dental Group. He helps people like you and me look and feel amazing by providing the best dental care available. See for yourself all the 5-star reviews at RockyMountainDentalGroup.com. Here's one. Every single person in this office is delightful. Their knowledge and consultative approach to dental care is fantastic. We highly recommend to everyone I know. If your gums are receding, it's critical to address this issue promptly, especially if you're in your 40s or 50s. You got half your life left. And if your gums are receding, that is going to eventually break down the bone in your jaw and your teeth are going to fall out. You got to get it taken care of. And Dr. Mike is a top-tier expert in the chow pinhole surgical technique. This method requires no cutting, no sutures, and virtually no downtime. The pinhole surgery is so painless that many clients go on to have other areas of their mouth treated as well. They also offer sedation if you have any apprehension at all. So schedule a free consultation with Dr. Mike. Call 303-233-1335. That's 303-233-1335 or visit RockyMountainDentalGroup.com. That's RockyMountainDentalGroup.com to book your free consultation today. We'll get to the phone calls and texts next. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Man, there's a whole lot of breaking news today, from the assassination of a healthcare CEO to arguments at the U.S. Supreme Court on transgenderism to the verdict on Daniel Penny. We're all waiting on, so you got to stick with 710 KNUS as we continue to cover all these news. Charlie Kirk is up next, followed by Sebastian Gorka and Mark Levin. All of them. It's going to be quite a show, so stick around. If you missed any of the show, go to 710knus.com to download the podcast. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. Enjoy your Wednesday.